The Decision Code. Unlock the power to choose your destiny. This audiobook reveals the hidden formula the top 1% use to make game-changing choices. Master this, and you'll never be at the mercy of chance again. The future belongs to those who decide. Introduction. Imagine this. Two individuals embark on life's journey from the exact same starting line. They attend the same institutions, earn identical qualifications, and secure comparable positions in their early careers. On the surface, they appeared to be equals, both driven, both seemingly capable. But then a divergence begins, subtle at first, then starkly apparent. One of them ascends, shattering expectations, achieving phenomenal success, breaking through financial ceilings, navigating complex challenges with ease, and consistently seizing opportunities others don't even see. The other? They plateau. They remain in the same role for years, grappling with the same recurring problems, feeling like they're expending immense effort but are perpetually stuck, watching as life unfolds for others but not for them. What was the critical difference? It wasn't innate talent. It wasn't a stroke of luck. It wasn't some unearned privilege or hidden connection. The defining factor was this. One person mastered the art and science of powerful decision-making, while the other remained indecisive, reactive, or consistently made suboptimal choices. This is the brutal truth that most people are unwilling to confront. The moment you abdicate your power to choose, or make choices based on fear, fleeting emotion, or incomplete information, you begin to lose. The instant you believe your current decision-making framework is good enough, or that major life choices are one-off events rather than a continuous stream, the world's complexities start to overwhelm you. Your ability to decide isn't a static trait. It's a dynamic skill. It's either sharpening, leading to clarity and progress, or dulling, leading to confusion and stagnation. And the individuals who grasp this fundamental reality, they are the architects of their own destinies. They are the ones who will never be left behind, tossed about by the whims of circumstance. If you've ever felt trapped, like you're pushing against an invisible barrier, like your hard work isn't translating into tangible results, like crucial opportunities always seem to materialize for others while you're left wondering why, it's not because you lack capability. It's because the world, in its relentless forward march, rewards those who commit to honing their decision-making prowess and penalties those who drift, defer, or decide poorly. And here's the most insidious part. Most people don't even realize their decision-making is the bottleneck. They graduate, get a job, and then operate on decision-making autopilot, assuming the strategies they used in simpler times are sufficient for an increasingly complex world. But they never are. The landscape shifts too rapidly, industries transform too quickly, and new variables emerge every single day. If you aren't constantly refining your ability to analyze, to choose, to commit, and to adapt your choices, you are silently, inexorably falling behind. And by the time the consequences become undeniable, it's often a monumental task to correct course. But there's incredibly good news. You don't have to be one of those people. The very fact that you are here, listening to this audiobook, signifies a monumental first decision. You've chosen to invest in yourself, to seek out a better way. You've made a commitment that the vast majority will never consider, to take conscious control of your decision-making faculty. And that single choice right now has the potential to radically alter the entire trajectory of your life. Because decision-making isn't just something you do, it's something you become. Why strategic decision-making is a lifelong process. Consider the greatest leaders, the most innovative entrepreneurs, the individuals who consistently seem to navigate uncertainty and emerge stronger. What is their common denominator? It's not merely that they worked hard or got lucky, it's that they cultivated relentlessly the ability to make high-quality decisions, often under pressure and with incomplete information. They understood that every outcome, good or bad, could be traced back to a series of choices. The most perilous mindset in today's volatile world is the belief that your decision-making skills are fixed, or that the way you made choices in the past will suffice for the future. that once you've achieved a certain level of success, you can stop scrutinizing your own judgment, that you inherently know enough to navigate whatever comes next. Because here's the unvarnished truth. The world doesn't care about the brilliant decision you made 5 years ago. It cares about the quality of the decision you are making today, in this context with these variables. Every industry is in a state of flux. Strategies that were once surefire paths to success are now recipes for obsolescence. Companies are restructuring, markets are shifting, and individuals who cling to outdated decision-making models are being left behind. The only pathway to guarantee sustained long-term success is to continually upgrade your capacity to choose wisely, deliberately, strategically, and with an unyielding commitment to improvement. And yet, the overwhelming majority of people never undertake this critical self-development. They don't read books on decision science. They don't invest in courses that sharpen their analytical skills. They don't systematically review their past choices to extract lessons. They don't actively challenge their own biases or seek out diverse perspectives. They navigate life believing that experience alone will hone their judgment, when in reality, experience without critical reflection and a commitment to better frameworks is merely the repetition of potentially flawed patterns. Meanwhile, the top 1%, the individuals who dominate the respective fields, who remain agile and in demand regardless of global shifts, they treat the refinement of their decision-making as a daily, non-negotiable discipline. They understand that enduring success is not about what you know, but how effectively you can decide and act based on that knowledge. And that is precisely why they win. They are not just passive recipients of circumstance. They are active shapers of their reality through the power of choice. The power of daily decision review. Why 10 minutes a day can forge your future. Most people imagine that mastering decision-making requires an MBA, years of mentorship under a titan of industry, or an innate genius for strategy. But the truth, as with most profound skills, it's the small, consistent daily habits that sculpt the most significant transformations. Honing your decision-making is like building a powerful investment portfolio. The earlier you begin, and the more consistently you contribute, even small amounts, the more potent and compounding the results become over time. Picture two individuals. One, after formal education, largely makes decisions on autopilot, relying on intuition, past habits, or the prevailing opinions of their immediate circle. They react to situations as they arise, rarely dedicating specific time to analyze their decision processes. The other individual dedicates just 10 minutes each day. Perhaps they review a significant decision they made, analyzing the information they had, the assumptions they made, the outcome, and what they could do better next time. Or they read a page from a book on cognitive biases. Or they contemplate an upcoming choice, explicitly listing pros, cons, and potential second-order consequences. Fast forward 5 years. One individual has, through these small daily investments, exponentially enhanced their strategic thinking, their ability to foresee consequences, their clarity under pressure, and has unlocked opportunities and levels of success they once only dreamed of. The other? They're likely still wrestling with similar challenges, making similar mistakes, wondering why their progress has stalled, attributing outcomes to luck or external factors rather than the quality of their own choices. That is the profound leverage of daily decision refinement. You don't need to dedicate exhaustive hours each day. You simply need to cultivate it as an unwavering habit. The linchpin is consistency. The most successful decision makers on the planet don't only scrutinize their choices when faced with a monumental crisis or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They make the improvement of their decision-making faculty a non-negotiable element of their daily operational rhythm because they understand a truth that eludes the majority. The best opportunities, the greatest breakthroughs, and the most significant advantages don't gravitate towards the merely talented or the hardest working. They are seized by the smartest, most strategic deciders. How this audiobook will equip you to stay ahead of 99% of people? This audiobook is not a collection of fleeting motivational platitudes. It is a strategic arsenal. It is designed to furnish you with the precise mental models, analytical tools, and actionable frameworks you need to become the kind of individual who consistently makes superior choices, who navigates complexity with confidence, and who never falls victim to indecision or costly errors, no matter how turbulent the world becomes. Each chapter is meticulously crafted to be practical, immediately applicable, and profoundly impactful. There is no fluff, no convoluted academic jargon, just real, tested strategies that deliver tangible results. These are the principles employed by the most effective leaders, innovators, and strategists across every conceivable domain. By the end of this audiobook, you will not merely comprehend why masterful decision-making is paramount, you will possess the exact blueprint to integrate these principles into the very fabric of your being, making strategic, clear-headed choices a permanent, almost unconscious part of your life. You will learn to identify and neutralize the cognitive biases that sabotage most people's judgment. You will discover how to gather and analyze information effectively, how to define your objectives with precision, how to weigh risks and rewards with a clear eye, and how to execute your decisions with unwavering commitment. The hidden secret of the world's most successful people? Their decision quotient. Still skeptical? Examine the trajectories of the world's most formidable achievers, entrepreneurs who built empires from nothing, investors who consistently outperform the market, leaders who guided nations through crisis, scientists who unlocked revolutionary discoveries. They operate in vastly different arenas, possess diverse talents, and leverage unique skills. But there is one unifying thread, one common denominator that underpins their extraordinary success: an exceptionally high decision quotient. They are masters of choice. Elon Musk didn't just stumble into creating groundbreaking companies in disparate industries like electric vehicles, space exploration, and artificial intelligence. Each venture was the result of audacious, deeply analyzed, and strategically sequenced decisions. He decided where to allocate monumental resources, which technological paths to pursue against conventional wisdom, and when to take calculated company-defining risks. Warren Buffett, one of history's most successful investors, doesn't attribute his wealth to luck. His empire is built upon a lifetime of disciplined, rational, and meticulously researched investment decisions. He spends the majority of his day reading and thinking, all to inform the critical choices that compound his success. He decided early on what not to invest in, a decision as powerful as what he chose to invest in. Oprah Winfrey's journey from a difficult childhood to a global media titan is a testament to a series of courageous and astute decisions about her career, her brand, the content she chose to create, and the values she chose to champion, often defying industry norms. The late Kobe Bryant, a basketball legend, didn't just rely on physical talent. His Mamba mentality was rooted in an obsessive commitment to making better decisions on the court. Shot selection, defensive reads, when to pass, when to attack, and off the court, in his training, recovery, and study of the game, he decided to outwork and outthink everyone. If these titans, operating at the zenith of human achievement, recognize the absolute necessity of continuously honing their decision-making capabilities, why would you ever believe you could afford to stop? Your entire life, from this moment forward, will be a sum of your decisions. Your choice: fall victim to indecision or master the code of choice and command your future. Right now, as you listen to these words, you stand at a decisional crossroads. You have two fundamental paths before you. You can choose to be like the vast majority, navigating life reactively, making choices based on fleeting emotions, incomplete information, or the pressure of the moment. You can continue to rely on outdated mental models, watch as opportunities are seized by others, and wonder why your efforts don't yield the desired results. This is the path of stagnation, of being a passenger in your own life, forever subject to the currents of chance and the decisions of others. Or you can choose to be like the top 1%. You can commit right now to the daily, deliberate cultivation of your decision-making prowess. You can learn to think strategically, to analyze critically, to choose with clarity and courage, and to ensure that every decision, big or small, propels you towards your desired future. This is the path of empowerment, of becoming the architect of your destiny, of ensuring you never fall behind. This audiobook is your comprehensive guide to choosing the second path. It will show you, step by step, how to master the art and science of superior decision-making. The only question that remains is, are you ready to make the decision to use it?
Chapter 1: The Mindset of a Master Decider. There is a fundamental reason why some individuals consistently make choices that lead to extraordinary outcomes, while others find themselves trapped in cycles of indecision, regret, or suboptimal results. It isn't luck. It isn't solely a matter of intelligence, as conventionally measured. It isn't even always about access to superior opportunities, though good decisions certainly create more of them. The real, foundational difference lies in how they think about the very act of deciding. Most people approach decisions as isolated events, often tinged with anxiety or a desire for a guaranteed right answer. They believe their ability to choose is a fixed trait, something they're either good or bad at. They celebrate when a choice works out, attributing it perhaps to good intuition, and lament when it doesn't, often blaming external factors or simply bad luck, rarely dissecting the underlying process that led to the outcome. But the reality is, if you continue to make decisions based on an unexamined, reactive mindset, you are already ceding control of your future. You are falling behind. And the most dangerous part? You might not even recognize that your internal framework for making choices is the primary impediment until the consequences become too significant to ignore. Think about it. The world is evolving at an unprecedented velocity. New information bombards us daily. Complex interdependencies mean that choices made in one area can have unforeseen ripple effects elsewhere. Skills and strategies that were once effective for decision-making are rapidly becoming insufficient. If you are not constantly upgrading your mental models for analysis, evaluation, and selection, you are unknowingly navigating a modern, high-speed highway with an outdated horse-drawn carriage. While you remain static in your approach, the world and those who adapt their decision-making surges forward, leaving you in its wake. And this is precisely where the 1% differentiate themselves so profoundly. They don't just accept the complexity of decision-making, they embrace it as a domain for mastery. They view the ability to make high-quality choices not as a burden or a source of stress, but as a privilege, a powerful tool, an opportunity for competitive advantage, and most crucially, a lifelong commitment to refinement. This chapter is about fundamentally reshaping your mindset around decision-making. It's about shattering the outdated notion that good judgment is an innate gift, or that past successes in choosing are a guarantee of future efficacy. It's about recognizing that strategic decision-making is a continuous, iterative process of learning and improvement. It's about understanding that the most successful individuals aren't necessarily those who always know the most, but those who consistently decide the best based on what they know and can discern. If you can internalize and adopt this evolved mindset, you will immediately separate yourself from 99% of people. You will become more adaptable, more resourceful, more insightful, and consistently a step ahead in anticipating challenges and seizing opportunities. So the pivotal question is, are you ready to break free from the common herd of reactive choosers and begin to think, and therefore decide, like the top 1%? Let's begin. Chapter 1. 1. Fixed versus growth mindset, the decisional divide that defines your future. What if I told you that your entire capacity for success, your ability to navigate failures, and the scope of opportunities you can access can be significantly influenced by one core belief system: how you perceive your own ability to make decisions? This isn't some airy motivational platitude. It's a concept grounded in robust psychological research, most notably by Dr. Carol Dweck, who identified two fundamental mindsets: a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Individuals with a fixed mindset regarding their decision-making abilities believe that their judgment, their analytical skills, and their capacity to choose wisely are largely innate and unchangeable. They think, I'm just not good at making big decisions, or I've always been indecisive, or I either have good intuition for this stuff or I don't. When a decision leads to a poor outcome, they tend to see it as confirmation of their inherent limitations. See, I knew I was bad at this, rather than as a rich source of data for improvement. They may avoid complex decisions altogether for fear of proving their inadequacy, preferring to stick with the familiar, thereby stagnating their decisional growth. But on the other hand, individuals with a growth mindset about their decision-making abilities believe that their judgment, analytical prowess, and strategic thinking can be developed and significantly improved through effort, learning, and experience. They view a suboptimal decision not as a personal failing, but as invaluable feedback. They see challenging choices not as threats, but as opportunities to stretch their capabilities. They understand that wisdom in decision-making is cultivated through deliberate practice, by learning from mistakes, their own and others, and by persistently seeking better frameworks and information. They ask themselves, what can I learn from this outcome to make a better choice next time? Or how can I strengthen my analytical process here, instead of, am I a good or bad decider? This subtle yet profound difference in perspective is what allows those with a growth mindset to continuously evolve their decision-making capabilities, while others remain tethered to their perceived limitations. If you aspired to consistently make choices that place you ahead of 99% of people, cultivating a growth mindset towards your own decisional capacity is non-negotiable. Nothing will serve you more powerfully in the long run. Every time you find yourself thinking, I'm just not skilled at making these kinds of choices, consciously add the word yet to the end of that sentence. I'm not skilled at making these kinds of choices yet. That small, powerful addition reframes the situation in your mind. It transforms a perceived static limitation into a dynamic process of development. It signals to your brain that decision-making is not a fixed verdict on your ability, but a skill you're actively honing. This is the foundational step to unlocking your true decisional potential.
2. Embracing analytical curiosity, your superpower for superior choices. Take a moment and reflect on the individuals you most admire for their astute decision-making. The visionary entrepreneurs, the sagacious leaders, the brilliant strategists. What underlying quality fuels their ability to consistently make insightful, impactful choices? Beyond raw intelligence or domain expertise, you'll invariably find a deep well of analytical curiosity. Analytical curiosity is the relentless drive to understand why things are the way they are, to uncover the underlying mechanics of a situation, to question assumptions, and to explore alternative perspectives before committing to a course of action. It's what prompts someone to dig deeper than the surface-level information, to ask, what if, and what else could be true, instead of passively accepting the initial presentation of facts. It's the force that compels an individual to read one more research paper, consult one more expert, or run one more scenario analysis when others might deem the current information good enough. The most effective decision makers on the planet never allow their analytical curiosity to wane. They understand that the quality of their output, the decision, is directly proportional to the quality of their input, the information and analysis. Yet for many, this innate curiosity, so vibrant in childhood, why is the sky blue? How does that work? Becomes blunted over time. As we progress through formal education and into our careers, society often subtly rewards quick answers over deep inquiry. Sometimes asking too many questions can be perceived as challenging authority or slowing down progress. Not having an immediate answer can feel embarrassing. The pressure to appear decisive can inadvertently stifle the very exploratory process that leads to better decisions. We are conditioned in many environments to converge on a solution quickly,
sometimes at the expense of thoroughly diverging to explore the problem space and potential options. This is a critical error. The individuals who consistently make superior choices, who navigate complexity with greater ease, and who seize opportunities that others miss, are those who have consciously nurtured and protected their analytical curiosity. They never stop asking probing questions. They are perpetually fascinated by the interplay of variables. They actively seek to understand the second-order and third-order consequences of potential actions. They are driven to explore the full spectrum of information, not just the data that confirms their initial biases. So, here's a practical challenge to ignite your analytical curiosity. Start questioning everything related to your decisions. When presented with a fact or a piece of data, ask yourself, what is the source of this information? What are its potential biases? What other data might contradict or complement this? How confident am I in its accuracy and relevance? When observing a successful outcome, either your own or someone else's, don't just attribute it to good luck or talent. Ask, what specific decisions led to this success? What were the underlying assumptions? What were the critical factors? How repeatable is this process? When someone tells you a particular course of action is impossible or the only way, don't accept it at face value. Politely but persistently inquire, what are the constraints that make it seem impossible? Have all alternatives truly been explored? What would have to be true for another option to become viable? Before making any significant choice, ask, what are my blind spots here? What am I not seeing? Whose perspective am I missing? If I were arguing against this decision, what would be my strongest points? The more you actively cultivate and unleash your analytical curiosity, the richer your understanding of any given situation will become. More options will surface. Potential pitfalls will become clearer. Your decisions will transform from reactive pronouncements to well-reasoned, strategic engagements with reality. This is not just about gathering more information, it's about developing a deeper, more nuanced understanding that forms the bedrock of wise choices. 3. Overcoming decisional paralysis, the hidden saboteur of progress. Most people don't consistently make poor decisions because they are incapable of good judgment. They fail to make timely or optimal decisions because they are crippled by the fear of making the wrong one. Decisional paralysis, often born from a fear of failure, a desire for unattainable certainty, or an overwhelming number of options, the paradox of choice, is a silent killer of progress and potential. It's the fear that stops someone from launching a new product until it's perfect, which it never will be. It's the anxiety that keeps an individual in an unfulfilling job because the risk of change feels too great. It's the endless information gathering that masquerades as due diligence, but is in reality a sophisticated form of procrastination, delaying the moment of commitment. People don't want to look foolish. They don't want to bear the responsibility of a choice that doesn't pan out. And as a direct result, they often choose inaction, which is in itself a decision, often the worst one. Here's a fundamental truth that master deciders internalize. A good decision made decisively and acted upon is almost always superior to a perfect decision that never gets made. Furthermore, failure is not the antithesis of successful decision-making. It is an integral part of the learning process that leads to it. Every expert decider was once a novice, making choices with less information and less refined judgment. Every master strategist has a history of decisions that, in retrospect, could have been better. The crucial difference is that they didn't let those experiences paralyze them. They extracted the lessons, refined their process, and kept making decisions. They understand that Information will rarely be perfect or complete. Striving for 100% certainty before acting is a recipe for perpetual stagnation. The art lies in knowing when you have enough information to make a reasonably informed choice, coupled with a plan to adapt as more information emerges. Most decisions are reversible or correctable to some degree. The fear of an irrevocable mistake often looms larger in our minds than the reality of the situation. Identifying which decisions are two-way doors, easily reversed versus one-way doors, difficult or impossible to reverse, can significantly reduce paralysis.
The cost of inaction can be far greater than the cost of a suboptimal action. Opportunities have a shelf life, markets shift, competitors move. Delaying a decision in pursuit of perfection can mean missing the window entirely. The moment you stop fearing the potential negative outcome of a decision more than you value the potential positive outcome, or the learning from any outcome, you become decisionally unstoppable. You start taking calculated risks. You learn faster from both successes and failures. You begin to grow in your capacity to handle uncertainty in ways you never imagined. So, the next time you find yourself hesitating, on the brink of decisional paralysis, ask yourself these critical questions. What is the real risk of making this decision now with the information I have? What is the cost of delay if I don't make this decision? What is the worst-case scenario and how likely is it? Can I mitigate it? Can I recover from it? What is the best-case scenario and what steps can I take to increase its likelihood? If I make this decision and it's not perfect, what can I learn from it to improve my next choice? If you learn from your decisional outcomes, they cease to be failures in the paralyzing sense. They become data points, tuition paid for the ongoing education in the invaluable skill of choosing wisely. 4. The role of self-discipline in strategic decision-making. If there's one personal attribute that acts as a powerful amplifier for effective decision-making, it's self-discipline. Most people make important choices primarily when they feel compelled by external pressure or when a surge of motivation strikes. They might defer difficult analytical work, avoid confronting uncomfortable truths necessary for a good choice, or fail to rigorously implement a decision once made simply because they don't feel like it in the moment. But the individuals who consistently achieve superior outcomes through their choices operate differently. They make the disciplined execution of their decision-making process a daily habit, even when, especially when, they don't feel an immediate inclination. Self-discipline in decision-making manifests in several crucial ways. Disciplined information gathering. It's the commitment to thoroughly research options, seek out diverse perspectives, and challenge one's own biases, even when it's tedious or requires confronting uncomfortable data. It's resisting the urge to jump to conclusions based on incomplete or easily available information. Disciplined analysis. It's the rigor to apply mental models, evaluate pros and cons systematically, consider second and third order consequences, and stress test assumptions, rather than relying solely on gut feelings or superficial assessments. Disciplined commitment. Once a decision is made after careful consideration, it's the tenacity to see it through, to allocate the necessary resources, and to resist the temptation to constantly second-guess or abandon the plan at the first sign of difficulty, unless new critical information genuinely warrants a reassessment. Disciplined review. It's the practice of systematically evaluating the outcomes of past decisions, not to assign blame, but to extract lessons, refine the process, and improve future choices. This requires overcoming the ego's desire to only focus on successes. Here's the secret that master deciders understand. Motivation is ephemeral, but disciplined processes endure. If you want to consistently make choices that keep you ahead, you must make the rigorous execution of your decision-making framework a non-negotiable part of your operational rhythm. Even dedicating 20 minutes of focused, disciplined thought to an upcoming decision, or to reviewing a past one every day, can place you in the top 1% of strategic thinkers over time. If you take away one singular powerful insight from this chapter, let it be this. The most profound act you can undertake for your future is to commit to the never-ending refinement and disciplined application of your decision-making abilities. The moment you believe your current method of choosing is good enough is the precise moment you begin to cede your power and fall behind. Stay analytically curious. Embrace the learning that comes from all outcomes. Conquer decisional paralysis, and make the disciplined pursuit of better choices a lifelong habit. Because while 99% of people will continue to make decisions reactively or based on flawed frameworks, the 1% who master the art and science of strategic choice will quite literally own the future. Will you be one of them?
Chapter 2: The Power of Information and Analysis in Decision-Making. Imagine trying to navigate a complex maze in complete darkness. You might stumble, hit dead ends, and waste enormous energy, all because you lack the fundamental element needed for effective movement: light. In the realm of decision-making, information and rigorous analysis are that light. Every day, individuals and organizations make choices that determine their future, yet a surprising number do so with partial information, flawed analysis, or by succumbing to cognitive biases that distort their perception of reality. While most people acknowledge the importance of information, a select few, the master deciders, understand that it's not just about having information, but about the quality, relevance, and interpretation of that information. They figured out a hidden truth: the ability to skillfully acquire, critically evaluate, and strategically analyze data gives them an almost unfair advantage. They make fewer assumptions, see patterns others miss, and identify opportunities and threats with greater clarity. But here's the challenge. We live in an age of information overload. Data bombards us from every direction. The internet, social media, news outlets, internal reports, the sheer volume can be overwhelming. You don't need a special degree or a secret informant network to access information. What you need is the skill to filter the noise, identify the signal, and transform raw data into actionable intelligence. And this is where 99% of people fall short. Either they drown in irrelevant details, get swayed by misinformation, or fail to connect disparate pieces of information into a coherent picture. This chapter is going to unlock the game-changing power of effective information gathering and analysis. It's about moving beyond passively receiving data to actively seeking out the right data, questioning its validity, and employing analytical frameworks that lead to superior insights. It's about understanding that the foundation of every great decision is not gut feeling alone, but gut feeling informed by robust evidence and clear thinking. If you've ever wondered how some individuals seem to consistently make well-informed choices, how entrepreneurs identify market gaps, or how leaders navigate uncertainty with confidence, it all begins with their mastery of information and analysis. And if you commit to developing these skills, you'll be tapping into one of the most potent secret weapons for success, enabling you to stand out, cut through the confusion, and make choices that aren't just good, but strategically brilliant. Let's dive into why the sophisticated use of information and analysis isn't just important, it's a decisive factor in achieving extraordinary outcomes. 1. Why master deciders prioritize high-quality information daily. Have you ever observed why some of the world's most successful investors, like Ray Dalio or George Soros, or visionary tech leaders like Satya Nadella or Jensen Huang, dedicate significant portions of their time to absorbing and processing vast amounts of information? It's not merely a hobby or an intellectual exercise. For them, it's the lifeblood of effective decision-making. They read voraciously, consult diverse experts, analyze market trends, and scrutinize data because they know that the accuracy and depth of their understanding directly correlate with the quality of their choices. Knowledge, when properly curated and analyzed, translates directly into strategic advantage and ultimately wealth and impact. In fact, Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's largest hedge funds, famously emphasizes the principle of radical transparency and the relentless pursuit of truth through data. His entire investment philosophy is built on understanding deep historical patterns and current market signals. Leaders like Satya Nadella at Microsoft didn't just guess that cloud computing or AI would be transformative. Their strategic decisions were backed by exhaustive analysis of technological trajectories, customer needs, and competitive landscapes. These individuals don't just passively consume information, they actively hunt for it. They seek out disconfirming evidence to challenge their own assumptions. They build networks that provide diverse perspectives. They invest in systems and processes to gather and synthesize data effectively. The common pitfall for most people is that they either operate on insufficient information, like, I didn't have all the facts, but I had to decide, or they get overwhelmed by too much irrelevant information. They might make decisions based on easily accessible headlines, social media trends, or the opinions of their immediate echo chamber, without digging deeper for validated, comprehensive data. But master deciders have ingrained a crucial principle. Small, consistent efforts in information gathering and quality control compound into significant decisional advantages over time. It's not always about uncovering some earth-shattering secret piece of data. More often, it's about consistently verifying sources. Is this information credible? What is the source's agenda or potential bias? Seeking diverse inputs. Am I only listening to voices that confirm my existing beliefs? What do credible dissenters or those with different experiences say? Distinguishing signal from noise. In a flood of data, what truly matters for this specific decision? Understanding context. How does this piece of information fit into the bigger picture? What are the underlying trends or systemic factors at play? Here's a powerful thought. What if you could systematically improve the informational basis of every significant decision you make? What if you could reduce the influence of guesswork, bias, and misinformation? What if the insights needed for your next breakthrough decision were already available, waiting to be diligently uncovered and thoughtfully analyzed? Because very often they are. The moment you make the disciplined pursuit of high-quality information a habit, you are opening the door to a new level of decisional clarity and power. 2. Differentiating data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, the decisional hierarchy. Now that we've established the critical role of information, it's essential to understand that not all inputs for decision-making are created equal. There's a hierarchy of understanding that master deciders navigate, and recognizing these distinctions is key to moving from simply collecting facts to making truly wise choices. Data. This is the raw, unorganized, and unprocessed material. It consists of facts, figures, observations, and signals. Examples: daily sales figures, website traffic numbers, customer complaints, survey responses. Data itself doesn't offer much meaning. A master decider knows data is just the starting point, not the destination. Information. This is data that has been processed, organized, and given context, making it useful. When data points are connected and patterns begin to emerge, it becomes information. Examples are a report showing sales trends over the last quarter, organized sales data, an analysis of website traffic sources, processed traffic data, a categorization of customer complaints by product type, organized complaint data. Information answers who, what, where, when, and how many questions.
Knowledge. This is information that has been synthesized, understood, and internalized, often through experience, learning, and reflection. It involves understanding the how and why behind the information. It's about recognizing relationships, principles, and patterns. Examples: understanding why sales are trending in a certain direction based on market conditions and competitor actions, knowing how different traffic sources convert into customers, grasping the underlying reasons for specific product complaints. Knowledge allows for prediction and informed action. Wisdom. This is the highest level. It's the applied use of knowledge, tempered with judgment, ethics, experience, and an understanding of long-term consequences. Wisdom involves discerning the best course of action in complex, often ambiguous situations, considering not just what can be done, but what should be done. It integrates insights with values and foresight. Examples: deciding on a long-term strategic pivot for the company based on evolving market knowledge and ethical considerations. Choosing how to respond to a crisis in a way that preserves trust and aligns with core values. Wisdom guides optimal and principled choices for sustainable success. Most people operate at the level of data and information when making decisions. They gather facts, look at reports, and then make a call. But the top 1% strive to elevate their understanding to the levels of knowledge and wisdom. They don't just ask, what does the data say? But what does this mean? What are the implications? How does this align with our long-term goals and values? What are the potential unintended consequences? So, how do you progress up this decisional hierarchy? From data to information, organize, categorize, visualize, and look for initial patterns. Ask clarifying questions. From information to knowledge, analyze for cause and effect relationships. Compare with past experiences or established principles. Seek to understand the underlying mechanisms. Learn from both successes and failures. From knowledge to wisdom, reflect on ethical implications. Consider long-term impacts. Seek diverse counsel. Integrate with your core values and overarching purpose. Exercise discernment and judgment. The goal isn't just to be data-driven, but to be wisdom-guided. By consciously striving to move beyond raw data and superficial information, you equip yourself to make decisions that are not only informed, but also insightful, strategic, and enduringly effective. 3. Analytical frameworks and mental models, tools for smarter, faster decisions. One of the biggest challenges in decision-making, especially under pressure or with complex information, is the tendency for our thinking to be disorganized, biased, or incomplete. Master deciders overcome this by employing analytical frameworks and mental models, structured ways of thinking that help them dissect problems, evaluate options, and anticipate outcomes more effectively. Think of these frameworks as the specialized tools in a master craftsman's toolkit. While a novice might try to build a complex piece of furniture with just a hammer, a master has a range of saws, chisels, planes, and measuring devices, each suited for a specific task, allowing for precision and efficiency. Here are a few powerful examples you can start using. SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A classic framework for assessing a situation or a proposed course of action. Strengths and weaknesses are internal factors you can control. Opportunities and threats are external factors you often can't control, but must respond to. This helps provide a 360-degree view. Application example: before launching a new product, analyze your company's strengths, example, strong brand, skilled team, and weaknesses, example, limited budget, outdated technology, alongside market opportunities, example, growing demand, competitor complacency, and threats, example, new regulations, emerging disruptors. Second-order thinking, consequence analysis. Most people think about the immediate consequence of a decision, first order. Master deciders discipline themselves to think about the consequences of those consequences, second order, and even further, third order, etc. This helps avoid unintended negative outcomes and uncover hidden opportunities. Application example: decision: cut research and development budget to boost short-term profits, first order. Consequence: reduced innovation pipeline, second order. Consequence: loss of market share to more innovative competitors in 3 to 5 years, third order. The Pareto Principle 80-20 rule. This principle suggests that roughly 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. In decision-making, it means identifying the 20% of factors, options, or actions that will yield 80% of the desired results, and focusing your energy there. Application example: when facing a long list of potential projects, identify the 20% that are likely to generate 80% of the revenue or strategic impact, and prioritize those. Inversion, thinking backwards. Instead of asking, how do I achieve success, ask, what would guarantee failure? By identifying and then avoiding the paths to failure, you often illuminate the path to success. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, is a strong proponent of this. Application example: if your goal is a successful product launch, ask, what would absolutely make this launch fail? Example, poor marketing, bad product market fit, insufficient customer support. Then systematically work to prevent those failure points. Cost-benefit analysis: a systematic approach to estimating the strengths and weaknesses of alternatives that satisfy transactions, activities, or functional requirements for a business. It involves quantifying, as much as possible, the expected costs and benefits of each option to determine which provides the best return or value. Application example: deciding whether to invest in new software by comparing the upfront and ongoing costs, licensing, training, maintenance, with the expected benefits, increased efficiency, reduced errors, better data. The power of these models isn't just in their individual application, but in building a latticework of them in your mind, as Charlie Munger advocates. The more models you understand and can apply, the more multifaceted your thinking becomes, and the less likely you are to be blindsided by a single, flawed perspective. Actively learning and applying these frameworks will feel effortful at first, but with consistent practice, they become more intuitive, allowing you to analyze situations and make decisions with a speed and clarity that will astound those who rely on unstructured, reactive thinking.
4. The critical art of questioning assumptions and identifying biases. Every decision we make is built upon a foundation of assumptions, beliefs we hold to be true, often without explicit proof. These assumptions can be about market conditions, customer behavior, competitor actions, our own capabilities, or the way the world works. While assumptions are necessary to navigate complexity, we can't verify every single detail all the time. Unexamined assumptions are landmines waiting to detonate our best-laid plans. Master deciders are acutely aware of this. They cultivate the critical art of explicitly identifying and rigorously questioning their core assumptions before committing to a significant choice. They ask, what assumptions am I making for this decision to be the right one? How confident am I in each of these assumptions? What evidence supports or refutes them? What would happen if one or more of these key assumptions turned out to be false? Are there alternative assumptions that are equally or more plausible? Beyond assumptions, our brains are also wired with cognitive biases, systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. These biases are mental shortcuts, heuristics, that help us make sense of the world quickly, but they can also lead to significant errors in decision-making. There are dozens of identified biases, but some of the most common and impactful include confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. We see what we want to see. Impact, ignoring data that contradicts a favored option, leading to poor choices. Antidote, actively seek out disconfirming evidence. Appoint a devil's advocate to argue against your preferred course of action. Anchoring bias, over-relying on the first piece of information offered, the anchor, when making decisions. Subsequent judgments are often made by adjusting away from that anchor, and there is a bias toward interpreting other information around the anchor. Impact, getting stuck on an initial price estimate or idea even if it's not accurate. Antidote, be aware of the first number or piece of information presented. Question its validity before proceeding. Seek multiple independent estimates or perspectives. Availability heuristic, overestimating the likelihood of events that are easily recalled in memory, often because they are recent, vivid, or emotionally charged. Impact, making decisions based on memorable anecdotes rather than broader statistical evidence. For example, overestimating the risk of a rare but highly publicized event. Antidote, seek out objective data and statistics, not just striking examples. Consider less vivid but more representative information. Sunk cost fallacy, concord fallacy, continuing a behavior or endeavor as a result of previously invested resources, time, money, or effort, even when it's clear that continuing is not the best decision. We don't want to waste what we've already put in. Impact, pouring good money after bad, staying in a failing project too long. Antidote, evaluate decisions based on future costs and benefits, not past unrecoverable investments. Ask, if I were starting this today, knowing what I know now, would I still do it? Overconfidence bias, the tendency for a person's subjective confidence in his or her judgments to be reliably greater than the objective accuracy of those judgments, especially when confidence is relatively high. Impact, underestimating risks, overestimating one's own abilities, or the likelihood of success. Antidote, solicit honest feedback. Consider worst-case scenarios. Be humble about the limits of your knowledge. The top 1% of deciders don't claim to be immune to these biases. No human is. However, they are aware of them.
They actively look for their influence in their own thinking and in the thinking of others, and they implement strategies to mitigate their impact. This self-awareness and commitment to intellectual honesty is a hallmark of superior decision-making. Building this skill requires humility and a willingness to be wrong. It means creating an environment where assumptions can be challenged without defensiveness, and where biases can be openly discussed. This is not about achieving perfect objectivity, which is impossible, but about striving for greater objectivity and reducing the error rate in your judgments. 5. Building an information ecosystem and analytical rhythm. Mastering information and analysis isn't just about learning techniques. It's about embedding these practices into your daily and weekly rhythm. It's about creating an information ecosystem that consistently feeds you high-quality inputs and a routine that ensures you process them effectively. Here's how you can start building this. Curate your information diet. Be intentional about what you read, listen to, and watch. Prioritize sources known for their accuracy, depth, and diverse perspectives. Unsubscribe from noise and low-value content. Follow thinkers and publications that challenge your assumptions. Develop a personal board of advisors. Cultivate relationships with people whose judgment you respect, who have different areas of expertise, and who are willing to give you honest, critical feedback. Consult them on important decisions. Schedule time for deep thinking and analysis. Don't try to make critical decisions on the fly or when you're distracted. Block out dedicated time in your calendar for focused analysis, just as you would for an important meeting. This is thinking time. Implement a decision journal. After making a significant decision, write down the decision itself, the key information and assumptions you based it on, the expected outcome and time frame, your level of confidence at the time. When the outcome is known, revisit the journal. What did you get right? What did you miss? What biases might have been at play? What can you learn for next time? This is one of the most powerful habits for improving decision-making over time. Conduct pre-mortems for big decisions. Before committing to a major course of action, imagine that it has failed spectacularly. Then, work backward to identify all the potential reasons for that failure. This helps uncover risks and weaknesses in your plan that you might otherwise overlook. Embrace iteration and feedback loops. For many decisions, especially in dynamic environments, think in terms of experiments rather than final pronouncements. Make a small bet, gather data on the outcome, learn, adjust, and iterate. This reduces the risk of any single decision being catastrophic. The power of information and analysis when wielded with skill and discipline is transformative. It elevates your choices from gambles to calculated strategic moves. It allows you to navigate uncertainty with greater confidence and to seize opportunities with greater precision. While 99% of people may skim the surface of information and rely on intuitive but potentially flawed analysis, the 1% who commit to mastering these foundational elements will consistently make decisions that shape their success and the future. The next time you face a choice, don't just ask, "What should I do?" Ask, "What information do I truly need, and how can I best analyze it to illuminate the wisest path forward?" Your future self will thank you for the rigor.
Chapter 3. The Power of Strategic Goal Setting and Prioritization in Decision-Making. Have you ever felt like you're making a lot of decisions, working incredibly hard, constantly busy, yet at the end of the day, week, or even year, you don't feel significantly closer to what you truly want to achieve? You're active, but are you productive? You're making choices, but are they the right choices, aligned with a larger, meaningful purpose? This common frustration often stems from a fundamental disconnect, a lack of strategic goal setting and ruthless prioritization as the guiding framework for decision-making. Without a clear destination, your goals, and a well-defined map of the most critical routes to get there, your priorities, every decision becomes an isolated incident, a reaction to immediate stimuli, rather than a deliberate step towards a desired future. Most people operate with vague aspirations rather than concrete strategic goals. They might say, "I want to be successful," or "I want to be happier," or "I want to make more money." These are desires, not strategic objectives. And because their goals are ill-defined, their decision-making lacks a coherent compass.
They get pulled in multiple directions, say yes to too many things that don't truly matter, and find their time and energy diluted across a multitude of low-impact activities. The top 1% of deciders, however, understand a profound truth. Clarity of purpose is the ultimate decision-making filter. They invest significant time and effort in defining with precision what they want to achieve, not just in the short term, but over the long haul. And once these strategic goals are established, they become the unwavering bedrock upon which all subsequent decisions are evaluated. Every choice is then weighed against a simple but powerful question. Does this move me closer to my most important goals, or does it distract and detract? This chapter is about transforming your decision-making from a reactive, haphazard process into a focused, goal-directed engine of achievement. It's about learning how to set goals that truly inspire and guide, and then, critically, how to prioritize relentlessly among the endless array of choices and demands on your time, ensuring that your decisional energy is concentrated where it will yield the greatest impact. If you've ever struggled with knowing what to focus on, feeling overwhelmed by too many options, or ending your days feeling busy but unfulfilled, this chapter will provide the clarity and the tools to change that. By mastering strategic goal setting and prioritization, you don't just make more decisions, you make the right decisions consistently, moving you with intention and power towards the future you envision. 1. The decisional power of clearly defined, inspiring goals. We've all encountered the advice to set goals, but for many, goal setting is a perfunctory exercise, a list of to-dos that quickly gets forgotten, or a set of vague ambitions that lack the power to truly shape daily choices. The master deciders, however, approach goal setting as a foundational strategic activity that provides immense leverage for all subsequent decisions. Here's why clearly defined, inspiring goals are so potent in the context of decision-making. They provide a North Star. When you have a clear, compelling vision of what you want to achieve, it acts as a guiding light. In moments of uncertainty or when faced with multiple options, you can refer back to your core goals. Goes option A or option B better align with achieving X? This simple test can cut through enormous complexity. They create a filter for opportunities. Life constantly presents us with opportunities, requests, and distractions. Without clear goals, it's easy to get sidetracked by things that seem interesting or urgent, but don't actually contribute to your long-term vision. Strategic goals act as a powerful filter, helping you say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. They fuel motivation and resilience. Pursuing significant achievements invariably involves setbacks and challenges. Vague desires offer little fuel to push through adversity, but a deeply held, clearly articulated goal provides a powerful why that can sustain effort and guide decisions even when things get tough. You're more likely to make the hard choices necessary to overcome an obstacle if that obstacle stands directly in the path of a goal you care deeply about. They enable effective measurement of progress. How do you know if your decisions are effective if you don't have a clear benchmark for success? Strategic goals allow you to define key performance indicators, or KPIs, and milestones, enabling you to track your progress, learn from your choices, and make necessary adjustments along the way. They facilitate resource allocation. Every decision involves the allocation of finite resources: time, money, energy, attention. Clear goals help you decide where to invest these precious resources for maximum impact. You're less likely to squander your efforts on low-priority activities if you know exactly what you're trying to build. But not all goals are created equal. To be decisionally powerful, goals should be SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This classic framework is a good starting point. Specific: what exactly do you want to achieve? E.g., increase monthly recurring revenue by 20% versus make more money. Measurable: how will you know if you've achieved it? E.g., by tracking MRR figures versus feeling more successful. Achievable: is it realistic given your resources and constraints, yet still a stretch? Relevant: does this goal truly matter to you and align with your broader vision and values? Time-bound: what is the deadline or time frame for achieving this goal, e.g., within the next 12 months?
inspiring and intrinsically motivating. Beyond smart, your most powerful goals will tap into your deeper values and passions. They should excite you and feel personally meaningful. Written down and regularly reviewed. The act of writing down your goals makes them more concrete. Regularly reviewing them keeps them top of mind and reinforces their importance in your daily decision-making. Think of your strategic goals as the constitution for your life or your organization. They define the fundamental principles and objectives. Every law you pass, every decision you make should be consistent and supportive of that constitution. If it's not, it's likely a poor decision, no matter how appealing it might seem in the moment.
2. The ruthless art of prioritization, deciding what not to do. Once you have clearly defined strategic goals, the next critical step in effective decision-making is ruthless prioritization. In a world of finite time, energy, and resources, and infinite possibilities and demands, the ability to discern what truly matters most and, just as importantly, what matters less or not at all, is a superpower. Most people struggle with prioritization. They try to do too much. They treat all tasks and opportunities as equally important. They get bogged down in urgent but unimportant activities. Their to-do lists are endless, and they feel perpetually behind. This is because they haven't mastered the art of deciding what not to do. Warren Buffett has a famous prioritization method. Write down your top 25 career goals. Circle your top 5 most important goals. The 5 goals you circled become your primary focus. The other 20? These become your avoid at all costs list. They are the things that are interesting enough to distract you, but not important enough to move you significantly towards your most crucial objectives. This might seem extreme, but it illustrates a vital principle. Strategic decision-making is as much about elimination as it is about selection. To truly focus on what's most important, you must be willing to consciously neglect or delegate things that are less important, even if they seem appealing or productive on the surface. Here are key frameworks and mindsets for mastering prioritization. The Eisenhower Matrix, urgent and important. This tool helps you categorize tasks and decisions based on 2 dimensions, urgent and important. Do it now. Crises, deadlines, critical problems. Important but not urgent. Schedule it. Strategic planning, relationship building, skill development, prevention. This is where the top 1% spend most of their time. Urgent but not important? Delegate it. Interruptions, some meetings, many emails, these often serve others' priorities, not yours. Not urgent and not important. Eliminated. Time wasters, trivial tasks, some social media. Most people live in quadrants 1 and 3. Master deciders consciously shift their focus to quadrant 2, making proactive choices that prevent future crises and build long-term value. Identify your one thing or MITs, most important tasks. Before starting your day or week, ask, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary, from Gary Keller's The One Thing. Or identify 1 to 3 most important tasks that directly contribute to your strategic goals. Your primary decision then becomes protecting the time and energy to accomplish these above all else. The cost of yes. Every time you say yes to something, you are implicitly saying no to something else, often something more important that you could have been doing with that time or energy. Before committing, consciously ask, what am I giving up by saying yes to this? Is it worth the trade-off in relation to my core goals? Embrace strategic incompetence, judicious neglect. There are some tasks or areas where being good enough or even slightly incompetent by choosing not to invest excessive energy is perfectly acceptable, freeing you up to excel where it truly counts. Not everything deserves your A game. Regularly review and prune commitments. Priorities can shift. What was important last quarter might not be as critical now. Periodically review all your ongoing projects, commitments, and even subscriptions. Ask, if I weren't already doing this, would I start it today knowing what I know now and given my current goals?
If the answer is no, find a way to gracefully disengage or delegate. Ruthless prioritization isn't about being lazy or shirking responsibility. It's about being strategically focused. It's about understanding that your decisional capacity is a precious, finite resource, and making the conscious choice to invest it only in activities that deliver the highest return towards your most significant objectives. It requires courage. The courage to say no, the courage to disappoint some people, the courage to let go of good opportunities in pursuit of great ones. This is where the rubber meets the road in strategic decision-making. Having clear goals is essential, but without the discipline to prioritize relentlessly, those goals will remain distant dreams.
3. Aligning short-term choices with long-term vision, the consistency factor. One of the most common pitfalls in decision-making is the tyranny of the immediate. We get caught up in daily urgencies, short-term pressures, and the allure of quick wins, often making choices that, while seemingly beneficial in the moment, subtly sabotage our long-term strategic goals. A classic example is sacrificing investment in future growth, R&D, employee training, for a slight boost in quarterly profits, or consistently choosing convenience over the disciplined habits required for long-term health. Master deciders, however, excel at consistently aligning their short-term choices with their long-term vision. They understand that great achievements are not the result of a few grand, isolated decisions, but the cumulative effect of thousands of small daily choices made in accordance with overarching strategic objectives. This requires a conscious and continuous effort to maintain perspective. Regularly step back from the daily grind to review your long-term goals. Ask, are my current activities and the decisions I'm making today truly serving this larger vision, or am I getting lost in the weeds? Evaluate trade-offs with a long-term lens. When faced with a choice that offers short-term gain but potential long-term cost, or vice versa, explicitly analyze the implications over different time horizons. A decision that looks good for the next month might look disastrous for the next 5 years. Develop patience and resist instant gratification. Many of the most valuable goals, building a successful business, mastering a complex skill, achieving financial independence, require sustained effort over long periods with delayed rewards. The ability to defer gratification and make choices that serve the future, even when uncomfortable in the present, is a hallmark of strategic maturity. Build systems and habits that support long-term goals. Instead of relying on willpower for every short-term decision, create routines and systems that make it easier to choose actions aligned with your long-term vision. For example, if your long-term goal is financial independence, automate your savings and investments. If it's to write a book, establish a non-negotiable daily writing habit. These systems reduce the decisional friction of making the right short-term choice. Use future self-visualization. When facing a tough short-term decision, imagine yourself 5, 10, or 20 years in the future. What would your future self, who has or hasn't achieved your long-term goals, advise you to do in this present moment? This can often provide profound clarity. The challenge here is that the rewards of short-term misaligned choices are often immediate and tangible, e.g., the pleasure of procrastination, the saved effort of taking a shortcut, while the rewards of long-term aligned choices are often distant and abstract. It takes discipline and a strong sense of purpose to consistently prioritize the latter. But the cumulative power of these aligned short-term decisions is immense. Each one is like a small deposit in the bank account of your future success. Individually, they may seem insignificant, but compounded over time, they build an unstoppable momentum towards your most cherished goals. Conversely, a series of short-term decisions that deviate from your long-term vision, even slightly, can lead you far off course over time, like a ship whose navigation is off by just 1 degree. 4. The decisional impact of values, the why behind your what and how. Beyond strategic goals and priorities, there's another profound layer that informs the choices of the most effective and fulfilled individuals, their core values. Values are the fundamental beliefs and principles that guide your behavior and define what is truly important to you. They answer the question, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of organization do we want to build? What principles will we not compromise regardless of the potential gain? While goals define what you want to achieve and priorities dictate how you allocate resources, values provide the ethical and motivational why. They serve as an internal compass, especially when facing decisions that involve moral ambiguity, difficult trade-offs, or situations where the easiest path conflicts with what you know to be right. Decisions made in alignment with core values tend to be more sustainable. Choices that violate your deeply held principles often lead to internal conflict, regret, and a loss of integrity, which can undermine long-term success and well-being. More resilient, when your why is strong and value-driven, you are better able to withstand adversity and make tough choices that uphold those principles, even when it's costly in the short term. More authentic, decisions aligned with your values feel more congruent and genuine, leading to greater personal satisfaction and often attracting like-minded individuals or customers. Simpler in complex situations, when faced with a bewildering array of options, referring back to your core values can often cut through the noise and illuminate the clearest path forward. If a potential action conflicts with a core value, like integrity or customer trust, the decision often becomes much simpler, regardless of the potential financial upside. The top 1% of leaders in organizations often articulate their core values explicitly and use them as a filter for strategic decisions. They understand that a strong, value-driven culture is a competitive advantage. For individuals, clarifying your personal core values can bring immense clarity to career choices, relationship decisions, and how you choose to spend your time and money. To leverage the power of values in your decision-making, identify your core values. Take time for introspection. What principles are non-negotiable for you? What qualities do you most admire in others? What do you want to be known for? List them out. Prioritize your values. You may have many values, but which 3 to 5 are truly core? This helps when values might seem to conflict in a specific situation. Use values as a decision-making tiebreaker. When logic and data lead to equally viable options, ask which choice best aligns with my or our core values. Communicate your values if leading others. Ensure your team understands the values that guide your organization's decisions. This empowers them to make aligned choices. Be willing to make sacrifices for your values. True commitment to values is tested when upholding them comes at a cost. Master deciders are often willing to pay that price. Strategic goals tell you where you're going. Prioritization tells you the best route, but your values tell you how you will travel and ensure the journey is one you can be proud of. Integrating all three creates a decision-making framework that is not only effective, but also deeply meaningful and sustainable. Without this integrated approach, you risk achieving goals that feel empty or making choices that, while efficient, lead you to a place you don't actually want to be. Master the art of setting strategic goals, prioritizing ruthlessly, and aligning every choice with your long-term vision and core values, and you will not just make better decisions, you will build a life and a legacy of purpose and impact.
Chapter 4. The hidden power of risk assessment and mitigation in decision-making. Every decision you make, from choosing what to have for breakfast to launching a multi-million-dollar venture, carries some element of risk. Risk is simply the possibility that the actual outcome of a decision will differ from the expected outcome, often in an unfavorable way. While many people try to avoid risk altogether or make decisions based on a vague emotional sense of danger, the top 1% of deciders approach risk with a far more sophisticated and strategic mindset. They understand that risk is unavoidable. To achieve anything significant, to grow, to innovate, you must take risks. The only way to avoid all risk is to do nothing, which is often the riskiest decision of all. Not all risks are equally created. Some risks are existential, threatening survival, while others are minor, leading to small setbacks. Some have a high probability of occurring, while others are remote. Risk can be managed.
While you can't eliminate risk, you can often identify, assess, quantify to some degree, and actively mitigate it. The ability to accurately assess and intelligently manage risk is a critical differentiator between those who make consistently sound decisions and those who are either paralyzed by fear or reckless in their choices. Most people operate at the extremes. Either they are risk-averse, shying away from opportunities that involve uncertainty, or they are risk-blind, leaping into situations without fully understanding the potential downsides. Master deciders, in contrast, are risk-intelligent. They don't avoid risk, they engage with it strategically. They seek to understand it, to measure it where possible, and to make conscious choices about which risks are worth taking and how to protect themselves against unacceptable losses. This chapter will demystify the concept of risk in decision-making. You'll learn how to move beyond emotional reactions to risk and develop a structured, analytical approach to identifying potential pitfalls, assessing their likelihood and impact, and implementing strategies to mitigate them. This isn't about becoming a daredevil. It's about becoming a calculated, clear-eyed navigator of uncertainty, enabling you to make bolder, smarter decisions with greater confidence. 1. Understanding the spectrum of risk, from annoyance to existential threat. The first step in managing risk effectively is to recognize that risk exists on a spectrum. Not all potential negative outcomes carry the same weight or demand the same level of attention. Failing to differentiate can lead to either overinvesting resources in managing trivial risks or, more dangerously, underestimating truly catastrophic ones. Consider these categories: nuisance risks or low-impact risks. These are events that, if they occur, would cause minor inconvenience, small financial loss, or temporary setbacks, but would not fundamentally threaten your core goals or survival. Examples: a supplier delivering materials a day late, a minor software bug that requires a quick fix, a social media post that gets a few negative comments. Decision approach: often these can be accepted, or simple, low-cost mitigation strategies can be in place. Overanalyzing or overinvesting here can be a waste of resources. Significant risks or moderate impact risks. These are events that could cause considerable disruption, notable financial loss, damage to reputation, or significantly delay progress towards key objectives. Examples: losing a key client, a major project delay, a significant product recall, or a data breach with limited scope. Decision approach: these require careful assessment and proactive mitigation plans. The cost of mitigation should be weighed against the potential impact. Critical risks or high-impact risks. These are events that could cause severe financial loss, irreparable damage to reputation, major legal liabilities, or a substantial threat to the achievement of strategic goals. Examples: a major cyber attack that cripples operations, the loss of a patent that underpins your core business, a natural disaster destroying key infrastructure, or a regulatory change that makes your business model unviable. Decision approach: these demand rigorous analysis, robust mitigation strategies, and often contingency plans. What to do if the risk materializes despite mitigation. Most people tend to focus on the risks that are most vivid or emotionally salient, often driven by the availability heuristic, rather than those that are objectively the most impactful. A common error is to overreact to low-impact risks while underestimating or ignoring creeping, high-impact but less than traumatic risks.
Master deciders cultivate the discipline to systematically categorize potential risks based on their potential impact and their likelihood of occurrence. A simple tool for this is a risk matrix, which plots likelihood, for example, low, medium, high, against impact, for example, low, medium, high. Risks falling in the high likelihood, high impact quadrant demand the most urgent and comprehensive attention. By understanding the spectrum, you can allocate your limited time and resources for risk management more effectively, focusing your deepest analysis and strongest mitigation efforts where they are most needed, rather than treating all potential problems with the same level of concern. 2. The art of risk identification, seeing around corners. You can't manage a risk you haven't identified.
Therefore, a crucial skill for master deciders is the ability to proactively and systematically identify potential risks associated with any significant decision or course of action. This isn't about being pessimistic, it's about being realistic and prepared. Many people only consider the obvious risks, the ones that are easily apparent or have happened before. But the most dangerous risks are often the ones that are unforeseen or lurking just out of sight, the unknown unknowns. Effective risk identification involves brainstorming and what-if scenarios. Gather a diverse group of people, if applicable, and ask, what could go wrong with this plan or decision? Encourage thinking beyond the obvious. Use prompts like, what if our key assumptions are wrong? What if our main competitor reacts unexpectedly? What if there's a sudden change in the market, economy, or technology? What internal factors, for example, team capabilities, resource constraints, could derail us? What external factors, example, regulatory changes, supply chain disruptions, pose a threat? Learning from past failures, yours and others, history is a rich teacher. Analyze past projects or decisions that didn't go as planned. What were the root causes of the problems? What risks materialized? Similarly, study the failures of others in similar situations. Consulting experts and diverse perspectives, people with different backgrounds, experiences, and areas of expertise will often see risks that you might miss. Seek out their input. Don't just talk to people who will agree with you. Using checklists and frameworks. For recurring types of decisions or projects, develop checklists of common risks based on past experience. Industry-specific risk frameworks can also be valuable. Conducting a pre-mortem, as mentioned in Chapter 2. This technique, where you imagine the project has already failed and work backward to identify why, is exceptionally powerful for uncovering hidden risks. Paying attention to weak signals. Sometimes risks don't announce themselves loudly. They start as small anomalies, subtle trends, or quiet concerns. Cultivate the ability to notice and investigate these weak signals before they escalate into major problems. The goal of risk identification is not to become paralyzed by an endless list of potential problems. It's to build a comprehensive awareness of the landscape of uncertainty you're navigating. Once risks are identified, they can then be assessed and prioritized for management. Master deciders understand that spending time upfront to thoroughly identify risks is an investment that pays huge dividends by preventing costly surprises and enabling more resilient plans. They don't see it as a negative exercise, but as a vital component of robust, intelligent decision-making. 3. Assessing likelihood and impact, quantifying risk where possible. Once a list of potential risks has been identified, the next step is to assess each one in terms of its likelihood, the probability of it occurring, and its potential impact, the severity of the consequences if it does occur. This helps prioritize which risks require the most attention and resources for mitigation. Assessing likelihood can range from highly subjective, for example, gut feel, to highly quantitative based on historical data or statistical modeling. Qualitative scales, often something like low, medium, high, or unlikely, possible, likely, is sufficient, especially for risks where precise data is unavailable. This requires experienced judgment. Quantitative probabilities, where data exists, example, historical failure rates of equipment, frequency of certain market events, you might be able to assign a numerical probability, example, a 10% chance of this occurring in the next year. It's important to be aware of biases when assessing likelihood. For example, the availability heuristic can lead us to overestimate the likelihood of recent or vivid events, while optimism bias can lead us to underestimate the likelihood of negative events happening to us. Assessing impact involves considering the various ways a risk could affect your objectives: financial, operational, reputational, legal, safety-related, etc. Qualitative skills, similar to likelihood, skills like minor, moderate, major, or catastrophic can be used. Define what each level means in the context of your specific decision or project. Quantitative measures,
Where possible, try to quantify the potential impact, especially in financial terms. Example, a potential loss of X dollars, a delay of Y weeks costing Z dollars per week. This helps in comparing different risks and in cost-benefit analyses of mitigation strategies. Combining likelihood and impact assessment, often using a risk matrix, as mentioned earlier, allows you to categorize risks. High likelihood, high impact. These are your top priority risks. They need immediate and robust mitigation plans. Low likelihood, high impact. These are black swan type events. While unlikely, their potential devastation means they often warrant contingency planning or insurance. High likelihood, low impact. These are often nuisances. They might be acceptable, or simple low-cost mitigation can be used to reduce their frequency or impact. Low likelihood, low impact are generally of least concern and may be accepted without specific action. The process of assessment is not a one-time event. For ongoing projects or in dynamic environments, risks and their assessments should be regularly reviewed and updated as new information becomes available or circumstances change.
Master deciders don't shy away from this analytical rigor. They understand that a clear-eyed assessment of likelihood and impact is essential for making informed choices about where to focus their risk management efforts, transforming vague anxieties into a structured understanding of the challenges they face. 4. Strategic risk mitigation, the 4 T's. Treat, tolerate, transfer, terminate. Once risks have been identified and assessed, the crucial next step is to decide how to respond to them. This is where strategic risk mitigation comes into play. There are generally 4 broad categories of risk response, often referred to as the 4 T's. Treat, or mitigate or reduce. This involves taking active steps to reduce the likelihood of the risk occurring or to lessen its impact if it does occur, or both. This is often the most common response for significant risks. Examples: implementing new safety procedures to reduce the likelihood of accidents, reducing likelihood. Installing a backup power generator to lessen the impact of a power outage, reducing impact. Diversifying suppliers to reduce dependence on a single source, reducing both likelihood of total disruption and impact of one supplier failing. Investing in cybersecurity measures to prevent data breaches. Decision point: the cost and effort of the treatment should be proportionate to the reduction in risk achieved. Tolerate, or accept or retain. This involves acknowledging the risk but deciding to take no specific action to mitigate it. This is usually appropriate for low-impact risks where the cost of mitigation would outweigh the potential loss. Risks where mitigation is not feasible or cost-effective. Sometimes even significant risks are tolerated if the potential rewards of pursuing the associated opportunity are deemed high enough and the organization has the resilience to absorb the potential impact. Examples: accepting the minor risk of a website being down for a few minutes due to a server glitch, tolerating small fluctuations in material costs. Decision point: this should be a conscious decision based on a clear understanding of the risk, not simply ignoring it. It may involve setting aside a contingency fund. Transfer, share, or outsource. This involves shifting the financial impact of a risk to a third party. This doesn't eliminate the risk itself, but it transfers the consequences. Examples: purchasing insurance, e.g., property insurance, liability insurance, cyber insurance. Outsourcing a high-risk activity to a specialist contractor who is better equipped to manage it and who often contractually assumes some of the risk, using contractual clauses like warranties or indemnities. Decision point: the cost of transferring the risk, e.g., insurance premiums, contractor fees, must be weighed against the potential financial loss if the risk materializes. Ensure the third party is capable of bearing the risk. Terminate. Avoid. This involves deciding not to proceed with the activity or decision that gives rise to the risk. This is often the appropriate response for existential risks or risks with unacceptably high potential impact that cannot be adequately treated or transferred, or situations where the potential negative consequences far outweigh any potential benefits. Examples: deciding not to enter a new market deemed too politically unstable, discontinuing a product line with significant safety concerns, choosing not to invest in a venture with an unmanageable level of financial risk. Decision point: this can be a difficult choice, especially if it means abandoning a potential opportunity, but it is sometimes the wisest one to protect core interests. The selection of the appropriate risk response strategy, or combination of strategies, for each identified risk is a critical decision in itself. It requires careful consideration of the risk's assessment, likelihood and impact, the cost and feasibility of mitigation options, the organization's or individual's risk appetite, the amount of risk they are willing to take to achieve specific goals, and the potential impact on strategic goals. Master deciders don't just react to risks as they happen, they proactively choose their risk response strategies, integrating them into their overall decision-making framework and planning. 5. Cultivating a risk-aware, not risk-averse culture and mindset. Ultimately, effective risk management in decision-making is not just about tools and techniques, it's about fostering a risk-aware culture and mindset. This is subtly but critically different from being risk-averse. Risk-averse tends to avoid any activity perceived as risky, often leading to missed opportunities and stagnation. Decisions are primarily driven by fear of loss. Risk-aware understands that risk is inherent in progress and seeks to identify, assess, and manage it intelligently. Decisions are made with a clear understanding of the potential upsides and downsides, and a plan to navigate the uncertainties. Cultivating a risk-aware mindset involves encouraging open discussion of risks. Create an environment where people feel safe to voice concerns and identify problems without fear of blame. Make risk discussions a normal part of planning and decision-making processes. Learning from both successes and failures. When a risk materializes, conduct a thorough post-mortem to understand what happened and how to improve. Equally, when a risky venture succeeds, analyze what risk management strategies contributed to that success. Define risk appetite clearly. An individual or organization should have a clear understanding of how much risk they are willing to take to achieve specific goals. This risk appetite guides decision-making and helps ensure consistency. Promoting preparedness and resilience. Instead of just focusing on preventing risks, also focus on building the capacity to respond effectively and recover quickly if a risk does materialize. This involves contingency planning, scenario analysis, and building flexible systems. Balancing risk with opportunity. Remember that the purpose of managing risk is not to eliminate all uncertainty, which is impossible, but to enable you to take calculated risks in pursuit of valuable opportunities. Don't let risk management stifle innovation or bold decision-making. The top 1% of deciders are not fearless daredevils. They are masters of understanding and navigating the landscape of uncertainty. They make risk assessment and mitigation an integral part of their strategic thinking, allowing them to pursue ambitious goals with greater confidence and resilience. They know that by proactively engaging with risk, rather than ignoring it or being paralyzed by it, they significantly increase their odds of making decisions that lead to sustained success. The next time you face an important choice, don't just focus on the potential rewards. Dedicate deliberate thought to the potential risks. Ask, what could go wrong? How likely is it? How bad could it be? And what can I do about it? This disciplined approach to risk will elevate your decision-making from a gamble to a well-calculated strategy.
Chapter 5. The Decisive Power of Execution and Adaptation. You've set strategic goals. You've gathered and analyzed information. You've weighed the risks and made your choice. Many people believe that at this point, the hardest part of decision-making is over. But the top 1% of achievers understand a critical, often overlooked truth. A brilliant decision poorly executed is no better, and often worse, than a mediocre decision executed flawlessly. The journey from choice to outcome is paved with execution.
And even the best laid plans will encounter unforeseen obstacles, changing circumstances, and new information that necessitate adaptation. The ability to not only make a sound decision, but also to drive its implementation with rigor and to adjust course intelligently when required is what separates those who merely decide from those who truly achieve. Most people underestimate the challenges of execution. They make a decision and then assume it will somehow magically implement itself, or they delegate it without sufficient follow-through. They become frustrated when progress stalls, often blaming the original decision rather than examining the flaws in its execution. Furthermore, when faced with unexpected hurdles, many either rigidly stick to the original plan, even when it's clearly failing, or they abandon it prematurely without exploring adaptive solutions. Master deciders, however, view the decision as merely the starting point. They are equally, if not more, obsessed with disciplined execution, translating the chosen course of action into concrete steps, assigning responsibilities, allocating resources, and relentlessly monitoring progress. Proactive adaptation, continuously scanning the environment for feedback and new information, and having the courage and agility to modify the plan, or even the original decision when circumstances demand it. This chapter is about bridging the crucial gap between making a choice and realizing its intended outcome. You will learn the principles of effective execution that ensure your decisions gain traction, and the art of adaptation that allows you to navigate the inevitable turbulence of the real world. Without mastering these twin powers, even the most insightful decisions will remain unrealized potential, and you'll find yourself perpetually wondering why your well-considered choices don't lead to the success you envision. 1. The execution imperative, turning decisions into action. Vision without execution is hallucination, Thomas Edison purportedly said. This perfectly encapsulates the importance of moving from the mental act of deciding to the tangible act of doing. A decision, no matter how brilliant, has zero value until it is translated into action. Effective execution requires clarity of action steps. The decision must be broken down into specific, actionable tasks. Who needs to do what, by when? Vague directives lead to confused or stalled execution. Clear ownership and accountability. For each action step, someone must be clearly responsible for its completion. Without accountability, tasks tend to fall through the cracks. Resource allocation. Ensure that the necessary resources, time, money, people, tools, are actually made available to support the execution of the decision. A decision without resources is merely an unfunded mandate. Communication. The decision and the execution plan must be clearly communicated to everyone involved or affected. Misunderstandings about the what, why, and how are major barriers to effective implementation. A bias for action, overcoming procrastination. Once a decision is made and a plan is in place, there needs to be a cultural and personal bias towards starting. Perfectionism can be the enemy of execution. Sometimes good enough and moving forward is better than waiting for perfect and never starting. The 80-20 rule often applies here. Get 80% of the way there with focused action, then refine. Persistence and resilience. Execution is rarely a smooth, linear process. There will be obstacles, setbacks, and moments of frustration. The ability to persist in the face of these challenges, to learn from them, and to keep driving forward is critical. The top 1% of deciders don't just make a choice and then hope for the best. They architect the execution process with the same rigor they applied to making the decision itself. They understand that the how of implementation is just as important as the what of the choice. Consider a military general who makes a brilliant strategic decision for a battle. If that strategy is not clearly communicated to the troops, if they don't have the necessary equipment, if supply lines are not established, and if there's no system for monitoring progress and responding to enemy actions, the brilliant strategy will likely lead to defeat. The same principle applies in business, personal life, and any other domain where decisions need to be translated into results. Are your decisions consistently followed by a robust execution plan, or do they often languish as good ideas that never quite materialize? The answer to this question is a major determinant of your ultimate success. 2. The critical role of feedback loops in guiding execution. Imagine trying to steer a ship across a vast ocean without any navigational instruments. No compass, no GPS, no way to know if you're on course. You might have a destination in mind, your decision, but without feedback, you're essentially sailing blind. In the context of executing decisions, feedback loops are those essential instruments. They provide information about progress. Are we moving towards the intended outcome? At what speed? Effectiveness. Are the actions we're taking actually producing the desired results? Obstacles. What roadblocks or unforeseen challenges are emerging? Changing conditions. Has anything in the external or internal environment shifted that might require a change in approach? Effective feedback loops can take many forms. Quantitative metrics, key performance indicators, sales figures, production data, customer satisfaction scores, website analytics. These provide objective data on performance. Qualitative feedback, customer comments, employee suggestions, market research insights, expert opinions. This provides nuanced understanding and context that numbers alone can't offer. Regular review meetings, dedicated times to discuss progress, challenges, and learnings related to the execution of a decision. Direct observation, actually seeing how the decision is being implemented and what its real-world effects are. Prototyping and testing. For new products, services, or processes, building a prototype and getting feedback from real users before a full-scale rollout is an invaluable feedback loop. The key characteristics of effective feedback loops are that they are timely, feedback needs to be current enough to allow for meaningful adjustments, stale data is of no use, relevant, the information gathered should directly relate to the decision being executed and its intended outcomes, actionable, the feedback should provide insights that can be used to make concrete improvements or course corrections, listen to, gathering feedback is useless if it's ignored. There must be a culture and process for seriously considering and acting upon the information received. Master deciders don't just set a plan in motion and then walk away. They build in robust feedback mechanisms from the outset. They are constantly listening to what the execution process and the environment are telling them. This allows them to catch deviations early, address problems before they escalate, and identify opportunities for optimization. Without effective feedback loops, you're essentially making a bet, your decision, and then waiting until the very end to see if you won or lost, with little ability to influence the outcome along the way. With them, you're actively steering, learning, and adjusting, significantly increasing the probability of reaching your desired destination.
3. The art of adaptation, knowing when and how to pivot. No plan survives contact with the enemy, famously stated Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, a 19th century Prussian field marshal. While your enemy might not be a literal army, the principle holds true for almost any decision implemented in the real world. Reality is messy, unpredictable, and constantly evolving. Therefore, even the most carefully considered decision and a well-crafted execution plan will almost invariably require adaptation. Adaptation is the ability to intelligently adjust your approach, or sometimes even your core decision, in response to new information, changing circumstances, or unexpected outcomes. It's the crucial skill that prevents you from rigidly adhering to a failing plan or from missing emerging opportunities. Key elements of effective adaptation include vigilance, situational awareness, continuously monitoring the internal and external environment through your feedback loops. What's changing? What's working? What's not? Humility and openness to being wrong. The ego can be a major barrier to adaptation. It's hard to admit that your initial plan or decision might have been flawed or is no longer optimal. Master deciders prioritize a successful outcome over being right about their initial approach.
Analytical rigor, not panic. When things aren't going as planned, the response shouldn't be to panic or abandon ship impulsively. Instead, apply the same analytical rigor you used in the initial decision. What is the new information? What are the implications? What are the revised options? Speed and agility. In many situations, the ability to adapt quickly is a competitive advantage. This doesn't mean being reckless, but it does mean avoiding bureaucratic inertia or decisional paralysis when a change is clearly needed. Distinguishing between a blip and a trend. Not every setback requires a major course correction. Sometimes it's just a temporary problem. The art lies in discerning whether you're facing a minor correctable issue or a fundamental flaw in your strategy that necessitates a more significant pivot. Knowing when to persevere versus when to pivot is one of the toughest judgment calls. Sometimes success requires pushing through temporary difficulties, perseverance. Other times, it requires recognizing that the current path is unsustainable and making a significant change in direction, pivoting. There's no magic formula here, but a clear understanding of your core goals, a realistic assessment of your resources, and honest feedback are crucial inputs. Learning agility, the ability to learn quickly from new experiences and apply those learnings to future actions, is the engine of adaptation. Think of successful startups. Very few end up executing their original business plan exactly as conceived. The most successful ones are those that are able to learn from early market feedback, iterate on their product, and pivot their strategy as needed. Eric Ries's The Lean Startup methodology is built around this cycle of build, measure, learn, which is essentially a framework for rapid adaptation. The fear of wasting prior effort, the sunk cost fallacy, and often prevent necessary adaptation. Master deciders understand that continuing to invest in a failing strategy is the real waste. Cutting your losses and redirecting resources to a more promising approach is often the wisest, albeit sometimes painful, decision. Adaptation is not a sign of a poor initial decision. In a dynamic world, it's a sign of intelligent, responsive leadership and effective decision-making in action. It's the difference between a rigid, brittle plan and a resilient, evolving strategy.
4. Overcoming inertia and resistance to change during execution. Even when a decision has been made and a clear execution plan is in place, one of the biggest obstacles to successful implementation is inertia and resistance to change. This can come from individuals, teams, or even the broader organizational culture. People are often comfortable with the status quo. New decisions, especially those that require changes in behavior, processes, or responsibilities, can evoke fear of the unknown. What will this mean for me? Will I be able to do it? Loss of comfort or familiarity. I liked the old way of doing things. Perceived threat to status or skills. Will this new approach make my current skills obsolete? Increased workload initially. Learning new things and changing habits often requires more effort up front. Skepticism, past failed initiatives. We've tried things like this before and they didn't work. Master deciders who are also effective executors understand that simply announcing a decision is not enough. They anticipate and proactively address potential inertia and resistance by clearly communicating the why. People are more likely to support a change if they understand the reasons behind it and the benefits it's expected to bring, not just for the organization, but ideally for them as well. Don't just explain what the decision is, but why it was made and why it's important. Involving stakeholders early where appropriate. While not always possible for every decision, involving those who will be affected by the execution in the decision-making process, or at least in shaping the implementation plan, can significantly increase buy-in and reduce resistance. Providing training and support. If the decision requires new skills or processes, ensure that people have the necessary training, resources, and support to make the transition successfully. Acknowledging and addressing concerns. Don't dismiss resistance out of hand. Listen to people's concerns, validate their feelings even if you don't agree with their conclusions, and address legitimate issues. Sometimes resistance can highlight genuine flaws in the execution plan. Celebrating small wins and progress. Change can be daunting. Breaking down the execution into phases and celebrating early successes can build momentum and show people that the new approach is working. Leading by example.
If leadership is visibly committed to the decision and actively participating in its execution, it sends a powerful message. Being patient but persistent. Overcoming ingrained habits and cultural inertia takes time. Be prepared for some initial friction, but maintain a consistent focus on driving the execution forward. Identifying and empowering change champions. Find individuals within the team or organization who are enthusiastic about the decision and can help influence their peers. Ignoring resistance or trying to bulldoze through it often backfires, leading to passive aggression, reduced productivity, or even outright sabotage of the execution. A more strategic approach involves understanding the root causes of the resistance and addressing them with empathy, clear communication, and strong leadership. The ability to effectively manage the human side of execution is a critical yet often underestimated component of turning decisions into reality. 5. The decision execution adaptation loop, a continuous cycle of improvement. The most effective individuals and organizations don't see decision-making, execution, and adaptation as separate linear stages. Instead, they view them as an interconnected, continuous loop or cycle. Decide. Based on the best available information, analysis, goals, and risk assessment, a choice is made. Execute. The decision is translated into action with clear plans, responsibilities, and resources. Monitor and gather feedback. Progress is tracked and data, both quantitative and qualitative, is collected on the outcomes and the environment. Analyze and learn. The feedback is analyzed. What's working? What's not? What new information has emerged? What are the learnings? Adapt or refine decision. Based on this analysis, the execution plan may be adjusted, or, if necessary, the original decision itself may be revisited and refined. Re-execute. The adapted plan is implemented. The loop continues. This iterative approach allows for constant learning and improvement. It acknowledges that initial decisions are often made with incomplete information in a dynamic environment, and therefore the ability to learn and adjust is paramount. This loop is fundamental to methodologies like agile software development, the lean startup, and many modern approaches to project management and strategic planning. It moves away from the old waterfall model, where a decision is made, a massive plan is created, and then rigidly executed, often only discovering problems at the very end, toward a more flexible, responsive, and ultimately more successful way of operating. By embracing this continuous cycle, you reduce the risk of catastrophic failure. Problems are identified and addressed earlier. You increase the likelihood of achieving desired outcomes. You're constantly steering toward your goal. You foster a culture of learning and improvement. Mistakes become opportunities to get better. You become more resilient to change and uncertainty. You are built to adapt. Master deciders are not just good at making the initial call, they are masters of this entire loop. They understand that the end of one decision process is often just the beginning of the next phase of execution, learning, and adaptation. If you truly want to join the top 1% of achievers, don't just focus on making good decisions. Focus on becoming a master of decisive execution and intelligent adaptation. This is where the real magic happens. This is how well-considered choices are transformed into tangible, impactful results that shape your future and the world around you. Your ability to execute with discipline and adapt with agility will ultimately determine the true power and impact of every decision you make.
Chapter 6. The Unshakable Mind. Cultivating Emotional Regulation and Resilience in Decision-Making. You can have the most brilliant analytical mind, access to perfect information, and a flawless strategic framework. But if your decisions are consistently hijacked by unregulated emotions or a lack of mental resilience, your outcomes will inevitably suffer. Fear can lead to paralysis or reckless impulsivity. Greed can cloud judgment. Anger can provoke rash actions. Despondency after a setback can lead to premature abandonment of sound plans. The top 1% of deciders understand that emotional intelligence and mental fortitude are not just soft skills. They are indispensable components of high-stakes decision-making. They recognize that while emotions provide valuable data, allowing them to drive critical choices is a recipe for disaster. Similarly, they know that adversity is inevitable, and the ability to bounce back from setbacks, learn from failures, and maintain composure under pressure is what separates sustained success from fleeting wins. Most people are, to a large extent, at the mercy of their emotional states when making important choices. They might make an impulsive investment when feeling overly optimistic, avoid a necessary confrontation when feeling fearful, or make a poor hiring decision based on a gut feeling that is actually an unexamined bias. When faced with a string of bad luck or a significant failure, their confidence shatters, and their subsequent decision-making becomes tentative and ineffective. This chapter is about forging an unshakable mind. It's about learning to recognize and understand the influence of your emotions on your judgment. Develop strategies to regulate those emotions so they inform, rather than dictate, your choices. Build the mental resilience to withstand pressure, overcome adversity, and maintain clarity even when circumstances are chaotic. This isn't about becoming a robot devoid of feeling. It's about becoming a master of your internal state, ensuring that your decisions are driven by reason, strategy, and long-term objectives, even when your emotions are turbulent. This is the inner game of decision-making, and mastering it is essential for anyone aspiring to operate at the highest levels of performance and achievement. 1. The double-edged sword of emotions in decision-making. Emotions are a fundamental part of the human experience, and they play a complex role in decision-making. They are not inherently good or bad for choices, but their influence needs to be understood and managed. The useful data edge of emotions. Intuition and gut feelings. Sometimes a strong gut feeling can be a signal from your subconscious, processing vast amounts of past experience and pattern recognition much faster than your conscious mind. This can be valuable, especially if honed by experience and coupled with rational analysis. Motivation and passion. Strong positive emotions like excitement, passion, and a sense of purpose can fuel the drive and persistence needed to execute difficult decisions and overcome obstacles. Empathy and social intelligence. Emotions like empathy allow us to understand the perspectives and potential reactions of others, which is crucial for decisions involving people, e.g., leadership, negotiation, sales. Warning signals. Fear can be a vital warning signal of genuine danger, prompting caution and more thorough risk assessment. Regret over past poor choices can motivate us to make better ones in the future. The destructive interference edge of emotions. Fear and anxiety can lead to indecisiveness, risk aversion even when risk is warranted, or, paradoxically, impulsive flight responses. Chronic anxiety can narrow focus and impair complex problem-solving. Anger and frustration can lead to aggressive, punitive, or short-sighted decisions made in the heat of the moment, often damaging relationships or long-term interests. Overexcitement and euphoria, greed or overconfidence, can lead to underestimation of risks, overly optimistic projections, and impulsive commitments, e.g., irrational exuberance in financial markets. Sadness and despondency can lead to apathy, lack of motivation, pessimistic biases, and a reluctance to engage in effortful decision-making. Stress, prolonged or acute stress, significantly impairs cognitive functions crucial for good decision-making, such as working memory, attention, and analytical reasoning. It often promotes reliance on simplistic heuristics or habitual responses. Confirmation bias amplification. Strong emotions can make us even more susceptible to seeking out information that confirms our emotional state, e.g., if angry, seeking reasons to justify the anger. The key insight is that emotions provide information, but they should not be the sole driver of your decisions, especially complex or high-stakes ones. Master deciders learn to acknowledge their emotions, understand the information they might be conveying, and then step back to analyze the situation rationally before committing to a course of action. They don't suppress their emotions, which is often counterproductive, but they also don't let them run the show. This is strategies for emotional regulation, maintaining composure under pressure. Emotional regulation is the ability to manage and influence your emotional experiences and expressions. It's not about eliminating emotions, but about responding to them in a thoughtful and constructive way rather than being overwhelmed or controlled by them. This is a skill that can be developed with practice. Here are effective strategies.
The pause, the emotional circuit breaker. When you feel a strong emotion welling up in a decision-making context, especially anger, fear, or intense excitement, consciously create a pause before reacting or deciding. This could be taking a few deep breaths, stepping away from the situation for a few minutes, or even delaying a non-urgent decision until you feel calmer. This pause allows your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, to catch up with your emotional brain, the limbic system. Labeling your emotions. Name it to tame it. Simply acknowledging and naming the emotion you are feeling. For example, I am feeling anxious about this presentation. I am feeling frustrated by this delay, can reduce its intensity and give you a sense of control. It creates a psychological distance. Cognitive reappraisal, reframing. This involves changing the way you think about a situation to alter its emotional impact. Example of reframing fear. Instead of thinking, this public speaking engagement is terrifying, I might fail, reframe it as, this is an exciting opportunity to share my ideas and connect with people. Even if I'm nervous, it's a chance to grow. Example of reframing frustration. Instead of, this obstacle is infuriating and unfair, reframe it as, this is a challenging problem that will require creative thinking to solve. Overcoming it will make the eventual success even more rewarding. Distancing techniques. Third-person self-talk. Instead of, I am so stressed, try, John is feeling stressed, but John knows how to handle pressure. This can help you observe your emotions more objectively. Temporal distancing. Ask yourself, how much will this matter in a day, a week, a year, or 5 years? This can put immediate emotional reactions into perspective. Mindfulness and meditation. Regular mindfulness practice trains your brain to observe thoughts and emotions without judgment and without immediately reacting to them. It strengthens your ability to stay present and calm even in stressful situations. Stress reduction techniques. Regular exercise, adequate sleep, and healthy nutrition are foundational for emotional resilience and better decision-making under pressure. Chronic stress depletes cognitive resources. Seeking perspective. Talking through a challenging decision and your emotional responses with a trusted, rational friend, mentor, or coach can provide valuable perspective and help diffuse intense emotions. The goal is not to be emotionless, but to be emotionally intelligent, to use your emotions as data, but to ensure your final choices are guided by logic, reason, and your long-term objectives. Developing these regulation skills allows you to make clear-headed decisions even when the internal or external environment is highly charged. 3. Building mental resilience, bouncing back from setbacks and failures. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, to withstand adversity, and to bounce back from setbacks stronger and wiser. In decision-making, failures and unexpected obstacles are inevitable. The difference between those who ultimately succeed and those who don't often lies in their level of mental resilience. Individuals with low resilience may become easily discouraged by negative outcomes, dwell on failures, and engage in negative self-talk, lose confidence in their ability to make good decisions, avoid future risks or challenging decisions, give up prematurely. Individuals with high resilience, on the other hand, view setbacks as temporary and specific rather than permanent and pervasive. They see failures as learning opportunities. They maintain a belief in their ability to influence outcomes, an internal locus of control. They stay optimistic about the future even when facing current difficulties. They adapt their strategies and persevere. Here's how to cultivate mental resilience for better decision-making. Cultivate a growth mindset, as discussed in Chapter 1. Believing that your abilities, including your decision-making skills, can be developed is foundational to resilience. A setback isn't a verdict on your fixed capabilities, it's a feedback for growth. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend who has experienced a setback. Avoid harsh self-criticism, which undermines confidence and problem-solving. Focus on what you can control. In any challenging situation, there are things you can control: your effort, your attitude, your response, and things you can't: external events, other people's actions. Resilient individuals focus their energy on the former. Develop a strong why, purpose. Having a clear sense of purpose or a compelling reason for pursuing your goals provides a powerful anchor during storms. When you know why you're doing something, you're more likely to find the strength to overcome obstacles. Build a supportive network. Strong social connections provide emotional support, different perspectives, and practical help during tough times. Don't try to go it alone. Learn from failure systematically. Instead of just feeling bad about a decision that didn't work out, conduct a post-mortem analysis. What happened? Why did it happen? What can I learn? What will I do differently next time? This turns failure into fuel for future success. Reframe challenges as opportunities. Every difficulty presents an opportunity to learn, to grow stronger, to develop new skills, or to find creative solutions. Adopting this perspective can transform your response to adversity. Celebrate small wins and progress. Acknowledging and appreciating your progress, no matter how small, can boost morale and reinforce your sense of efficacy, especially after a setback. Mental resilience isn't about being immune to stress or difficulty. It's about having the inner resources to navigate those experiences effectively, to learn from them, and to emerge capable of making even better decisions in the future. It's the psychological armor that protects your decision-making faculty from the inevitable blows of life and work.
Chapter 7. The Collaborative Edge. Leveraging diverse perspectives for superior decisions. No single individual, no matter how intelligent or experienced, possesses all the knowledge, insight, or perspectives necessary to consistently make optimal decisions, especially in complex and rapidly changing environments. The belief that one person alone can or should have all the answers is a dangerous myth that often leads to suboptimal choices, blind spots, and missed opportunities. The top 1% of deciders, particularly those in leadership roles or operating in multifaceted domains, understand a profound secret. There is immense power in leveraging diverse perspectives. They actively seek out, encourage, and integrate a variety of viewpoints from experts, team members, stakeholders, and even constructive dissenters to enrich their understanding, challenge their assumptions, and ultimately arrive at more robust and innovative decisions. This isn't just about teamwork in a generic sense. It's about the deliberate and skillful orchestration of collective intelligence to elevate the quality of your choices far beyond what any single mind could achieve alone. If you aspire to make decisions that are not just good, but truly groundbreaking and resilient, learning to leverage the power of diverse perspectives is non-negotiable. 1. The cognitive advantage of diverse thinking in decision-making. Why is cognitive diversity, differences in how people think, their backgrounds, experiences, knowledge bases, and problem-solving approaches, so valuable in decision-making? Wider range of information and knowledge. Individuals from different disciplines, cultures, or with varied life experiences bring unique sets of information and knowledge to the table. This expands the pool of available data and insights, leading to a more comprehensive understanding of the decision landscape. Challenging assumptions and identifying blind spots. People who think differently are more likely to question the prevailing assumptions and identify potential blind spots that those within a homogeneous group might overlook. They can see the water that the fish, the insiders, are swimming in, generating more creative and innovative solutions. When diverse minds come together, they can combine ideas in novel ways, leading to more creative and innovative solutions than any single individual or a group of similar thinkers could devise. Different perspectives spark new connections. More robust risk assessment. A variety of viewpoints can help uncover a wider range of risks and vulnerabilities associated with the decision, leading to more thorough risk assessment and mitigation strategies. Someone with a different risk tolerance or area of expertise might spot a threat others miss. Improved problem definition. Before jumping to solutions, diverse perspectives can help ensure that the problem itself is correctly and comprehensively defined. Different viewpoints can illuminate different facets of a complex issue. Increased buy-in and easier implementation.
When people feel their perspectives have been heard and considered, even if their preferred option isn't chosen, they are generally more likely to support and actively participate in the execution of the final decision. Reduced likelihood of groupthink. Groupthink occurs when the desire for harmony or conformity in a group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. Diverse perspectives act as a powerful antidote by encouraging critical evaluation and dissent. Research consistently shows that diverse teams, when well managed, outperform homogeneous teams in complex problem-solving and decision-making tasks. The friction created by different viewpoints, while sometimes uncomfortable, is often the very thing that polishes the final decision to a higher shine. The top 1% of deciders don't see diversity of thought as a hurdle to overcome, but as a strategic resource to be actively cultivated and leveraged. They understand that the optimal decision is rarely found within the confines of a single perspective.
2. Creating a culture of psychological safety for open contribution. Leveraging diverse perspectives is not just about having different types of people in the room, it's about creating an environment where those people feel psychologically safe to voice their genuine thoughts, opinions, concerns, and even dissenting views without fear of retribution, ridicule, or career repercussions. Psychological safety, a concept popularized by Harvard Business School professor Amy Edmondson, is a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. In a psychologically safe environment, people feel comfortable speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or admitting mistakes. Dissent is viewed as a valuable contribution to the decision-making process, not as a sign of disloyalty or negativity. Leaders actively solicit and appreciate different viewpoints, even those that challenge their own. Mistakes are treated as learning opportunities rather than occasions for blame. Without psychological safety, even if you have a diverse group, you'll likely only hear the dominant voices, the opinions that align with the leader, or a superficial consensus. People will self-censor to avoid conflict or perceived risk. Leaders and decision-makers can foster psychological safety by explicitly stating its importance. Make it clear that diverse opinions and constructive dissent are valued and expected. Leading by example. Be open about your own fallibility. Admit when you don't know something or when you've made a mistake. Actively solicit feedback on your own ideas. Practicing active listening. When someone offers a different perspective, listen attentively and respectfully. Seek to understand their viewpoint before evaluating or critiquing it. Ask clarifying questions. Framing work as learning problems, not execution problems. This encourages experimentation and acknowledges that not all answers are known in advance, making it safer to try new things and report on both successes and failures. Responding productively to dissent and bad news. If someone raises a concern or delivers unwelcome news, thank them for their courage and honesty. If people are punished for speaking truth to power, they will quickly learn to stay silent. Encouraging constructive conflict or debate. Frame disagreements around ideas and approaches as healthy and necessary for finding the best solution, rather than as personal attacks. Celebrating contributions from all levels. Ensure that insights from junior team members or those outside the core decision-making group are heard and valued. Creating psychological safety is not about being nice or avoiding all disagreement. It's about creating the conditions for productive disagreement and open inquiry, which are essential for tapping into the collective intelligence of a group and making truly robust decisions. 2. 3. Techniques for eliciting and integrating diverse perspectives. Beyond creating a safe environment, master deciders employ specific techniques to actively elicit and effectively integrate diverse perspectives into their decision-making process. Brainstorming with clear rules. While classic brainstorming can sometimes be dominated by a few voices, structured variations, for example, brain writing, where ideas are written down silently first, or using a facilitator to ensure everyone contributes, can be effective.
Key rules often include deferring judgment, encouraging wild ideas, building on others' ideas, and aiming for quantity. The Delphi method, a structured forecasting or decision-making technique that involves multiple rounds of anonymous questionnaires interspersed with controlled feedback. Experts provide their judgments independently, a facilitator summarizes the responses, and the experts then revise their judgments based on the group feedback. This helps reduce the influence of dominant personalities and groupthink. Appointing the devil's advocate, assigning someone the specific role of arguing against a proposed decision or challenging the prevailing assumptions. This legitimizes dissent and forces the group to consider alternative viewpoints and potential weaknesses in their plan. The role should rotate to avoid one person always being seen as negative. Red teaming. Similar to a devil's advocate, but often more structured, a red team is tasked with simulating an adversary or critic to stress test a plan or decision from an inside-out perspective, looking for vulnerabilities. 6 thinking hats, Edward de Bono. A technique where participants metaphorically wear different colored hats, each representing a distinct mode of thinking. For example, white hat for facts, data, red hat for emotions, intuition, black hat for critical judgment, risks, yellow hat for optimism, benefits, green hat for creativity, new ideas, blue hat for process control, overview. This encourages parallel thinking and ensures all aspects of a decision are considered. Seeking input before sharing your own opinion, especially for leaders. If you're the decision maker, sharing your own strong opinion up front can inadvertently bias the discussion and discourage others from offering contradictory views. Try to elicit others' perspectives first. Using diverse councils or advisory groups. Formally or informally, create groups of trusted advisors with diverse expertise and backgrounds to consult on important decisions. Systematic information gathering from different stakeholders. Proactively seek input from customers, frontline employees, suppliers, community members, etc., who may have unique insights relevant to the decision. Surveys, focus groups, and interviews can be useful. Steel manning opposing arguments. Instead of straw manning, which misrepresents an opposing argument to make it easier to attack, try to articulate the strongest possible version of the opposing viewpoint. This demonstrates understanding and allows for a more productive debate. The goal of these techniques is not necessarily to reach a unanimous consensus on every point, though that can happen, but to ensure that the final decision is informed by a rich tapestry of insights, has been stress-tested from multiple angles, and has considered a wide range of potential consequences and alternatives. 4. Navigating disagreement and synthesizing for a final decision. Leveraging diverse perspectives inevitably means encountering disagreement. This is not a bad thing. It's a sign that different viewpoints are actually being expressed. The challenge lies in navigating these disagreements constructively and then synthesizing the various inputs into a coherent and actionable final decision. Key skills include facilitating constructive debate. Keep the focus on ideas, not personalities. Establish ground rules for respectful disagreement. Encourage participants to challenge assumptions but not each other. Clarifying the nature of the disagreement. Is it a disagreement about facts, about assumptions, about values, about the interpretation of data, about the desired outcome? Understanding the root of the disagreement is crucial for resolving it. Seek to understand, not just to win. Encourage all parties to genuinely try to understand the perspectives of others, even if they don't ultimately agree with them. Knowing when to gather more information. If a disagreement stems from a lack of clear data, the best course of action might be to pause the debate and gather more information. The role of the ultimate decision maker. In most situations, even after extensive collaboration, one person or a small group is ultimately responsible for making the final call. Their role is to listen to all perspectives, weigh the evidence, consider the strategic implications, and then make the decision they believe is best, explaining the rationale clearly.
They may not please everyone, but if the process has been fair and transparent, the decision is more likely to be accepted. Communicating the rationale for the final decision. Once a decision is made, it's crucial to explain why that particular course of action was chosen, acknowledging the different perspectives that were considered. This helps those whose preferred options weren't selected understand the reasoning and commit to the chosen path. The ability to harness the power of diverse perspectives is the hallmark of truly sophisticated decision makers. It moves beyond the limitations of individual cognition and taps into the amplified intelligence of the collective. While it may require more upfront effort and skillful facilitation, the resulting decisions are almost invariably more robust, innovative, and successful in the long run. If you aspired to make choices that truly stand out and drive exceptional results, make it your mission to become a master at seeking, encouraging, and integrating diverse thinking into every critical decision you make. Your competitive edge will be formidable.
Chapter 8. The Long Game. Time Horizons and Second-Order Thinking in Decision-Making. In a world obsessed with immediate results, quarterly earnings, and instant gratification, one of the most potent yet underutilized strategic advantages in decision-making is the ability to think and act with a long-term perspective. Many individuals and organizations fall into the trap of optimizing for short-term gains, often at the expense of sustainable long-term success. They make choices that provide immediate relief or a quick win, without fully considering the second-order consequences, the ripple effects, and delayed impacts that will manifest weeks, months, or even years down the line. The top 1% of deciders, especially those who build enduring legacies, are masters of playing the long game. They understand that the most significant achievements are rarely the product of a single brilliant short-term move. Instead, they are the cumulative result of a series of well-considered decisions made with a clear eye on a distant horizon, consistently factoring in the often unseen downstream effects of their current choices. This chapter is about fundamentally shifting your decisional time horizon. It's about moving beyond the tyranny of the immediate and learning to incorporate long-term strategic objectives into your everyday choices, develop the discipline of second-order thinking to anticipate and evaluate the wider, often delayed, consequences of your decisions, resist the allure of short-term fixes that create long-term problems. Mastering this long-view perspective is like having a telescope in a world where most people are only looking at what's directly in front of their feet. It allows you to see opportunities and threats that others miss, to build more resilient strategies, and to make choices that compound positively over time, leading to a level of success that is simply unattainable for those fixated on the here and now. 1. The tyranny of short-termism and its impact on decision quality. Our modern environment is, in many ways, engineered to promote short-term thinking. Quarterly reporting cycles in business. Public companies often face immense pressure to deliver strong quarterly results, sometimes leading to decisions that boost immediate profits but undermine long-term health, for example, cutting R&D, neglecting employee development, or over-milking existing products. Political cycles. Elected officials often focus on policies that will yield visible results before the next election, sometimes neglecting crucial long-term investments or difficult reforms. Media and news cycles. The constant barrage of breaking news and immediate events can keep our attention fragmented and focused on the present, making it harder to maintain a long-term strategic view. Social media and instant gratification. The dopamine hits from likes, shares, and instant responses can condition us to seek immediate rewards and become impatient with processes that require sustained effort for delayed gratification. Personal financial pressures. Immediate financial needs can understandably force individuals to make decisions that prioritize short-term cash flow over long-term wealth building. When decisions are consistently driven by short-term pressures, the quality of those decisions often suffers in several ways. Reactive versus proactive. Focus shifts to firefighting and responding to immediate crises rather than proactively shaping the future. Superficial solutions. Quick fixes are favored over addressing root causes, leading to recurring problems. Underinvestment in long-term assets. Crucial investments in talent, innovation, infrastructure, brand building, or personal skill development may be neglected because their payoffs are not immediate. Increased likelihood of unintended negative consequences. Without considering downstream effects, decisions made for short-term benefit can create significant long-term problems, for example, environmental damage from cost-cutting measures or loss of customer trust from deceptive marketing. Missed strategic opportunities. Opportunities that require sustained long-term commitment may be overlooked or dismissed because they don't offer a quick return. Erosion of trust and reputation. A consistent pattern of short-sighted decisions can damage an organization's or individual's reputation for reliability and strategic thinking. While addressing immediate needs is sometimes necessary, a persistent pattern of short-term decision-making is a recipe for mediocrity or eventual failure. The top 1% understand that true strategic advantage often lies in being willing and able to make choices that others, constrained by short-term pressures, cannot or will not make. 2. The power of second-order thinking, seeing beyond immediate consequences. Every decision has consequences. First-order consequences are the immediate, direct results of a choice. Most people stop their analysis here. Second-order consequences, however, are the results of the first-order consequences, and third-order consequences are the results of the second-order consequences, and so on. Master deciders cultivate the discipline of second-order thinking and beyond. They ask not just what will happen if I do X, but also, and then what? And then what after that? This deeper level of analysis helps to uncover hidden risks. A decision that looks good based on its first-order effects might have disastrous second- or third-order consequences that are not immediately obvious.
Decision. Offer deep discounts to quickly boost sales. First order, increase sales revenue. Second order, customers become conditioned to expect discounts, devaluing the brand. Third order, reduced profit margins, inability to invest in quality, eventual loss of market share. Identify unforeseen opportunities. Conversely, a decision that seems costly or difficult in the short term might unlock significant positive second-order effects. Example, decision, invest heavily in employee training and development. First order, increased costs, time away from immediate tasks. Second order, higher employee skills, morale, and retention. Third order, increased innovation, better customer service, stronger competitive advantage. Avoid solving one problem by creating a bigger one. Many well-intentioned decisions focused only on first-order effects inadvertently create new and often more complex problems down the line. Second-order thinking helps to anticipate and avoid these traps. Example, the Cobra effect. In colonial India, the British government, concerned about the number of venomous cobras in Delhi, offered a bounty for every dead cobra. First order, people killed cobras for the bounty. Second order, enterprising people began to breed cobras to earn more bounties. Third order, when the government, realizing this, scrapped the bounty, the cobra breeders released their now worthless snakes, leading to an even larger cobra population. Make more robust and sustainable choices. Decisions informed by an understanding of their wider ripple effects are generally more resilient and less likely to lead to negative surprises. Developing second-order thinking requires slowing down. It takes more mental effort than just considering immediate impacts. Asking, and then what, repeatedly. Considering a longer time horizon. Thinking in systems. Understanding how different parts of a system, an organization, a market, an ecosystem, are interconnected and how a change in one area can affect others. Involving diverse perspectives. Different people may be better at foreseeing different types of second-order effects based on their experience and expertise. Ray Dalio emphasizes that one of the greatest tragedies of mankind is that people are generally unprepared for what is going to happen to them, even though it has all happened before. Second-order thinking, often informed by an understanding of historical patterns, helps to break this cycle. While you can't ever predict the future with certainty, systematically considering downstream consequences dramatically improves the odds of making choices that are beneficial in both the short and the long run. 3. Playing chess, not checkers. Strategic patience and long-term investment. A common analogy used to describe the difference between short-term and long-term thinking in decision-making is playing checkers versus playing chess. Checkers, a relatively straightforward game where moves are often tactical and focused on immediate captures or threats. The horizon is usually just a few moves ahead. Chess, a complex game requiring deep strategic thinking, planning many moves in advance, anticipating opponent responses, and sometimes making sacrifices, short-term losses, for long-term positional advantage or an eventual checkmate. Master deciders approach their most important choices like a chess grandmaster. They are characterized by strategic patience. They are willing to wait for the right opportunity, to let a strategy unfold over time, and to resist the urge to react impulsively to every minor fluctuation or setback. They understand that some of the best investments in businesses, skills, relationships take years or even decades to fully mature. Willingness to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. They might choose to forgo immediate profits to invest in research that could lead to a breakthrough product years later. They might endure a period of discomfort or hard work to acquire a skill that will provide a significant advantage in the future. They understand the principle of delayed gratification. Focus on building enduring assets. Instead of just chasing quick wins, they focus on building sustainable assets, a strong brand, a loyal customer base, a highly skilled team, a robust intellectual property portfolio, a solid financial foundation, deep personal expertise. These assets provide a platform for long-term success and resilience. This long-game approach is not always easy. It often requires swimming against the tide of short-term pressures and expectations. It demands discipline, foresight, and a strong belief in the chosen strategy. But the rewards are immense. Companies like Amazon, with its relentless focus on long-term customer value, often at the expense of short-term profits in its early days, or individuals who dedicate decades to mastering a craft, are testaments to the power of this approach. When faced with the decision, ask yourself, am I optimizing for today or for the next decade? What would the chess player version of me do in this situation versus the checkers player? Is this decision building a lasting asset, or is it just a temporary fix? What are the second and third order consequences of this choice if I extend the time horizon out 5, 10, or 20 years? By consciously expanding your decisional time horizon and consistently practicing second-order thinking, you move from being a reactive participant in events to a strategic architect of your future. You begin to make choices that are not just effective in the moment, but that build a legacy of sustainable success.
Chapter 9. The Decisional Audit. Learning, refining, and calibrating your judgment. Imagine a top athlete who never reviews their game footage, a scientist who never analyzes their experimental results, or a pilot who never debriefs after a challenging flight. It's unthinkable, right? Continuous improvement in any complex skill requires a commitment to systematic review, learning, and refinement. Yet, when it comes to decision-making, arguably one of the most critical life skills, most people rarely, if ever, conduct a formal audit of their own choices and outcomes. They make a decision, experience the result, good or bad, and then simply move on to the next one, often repeating the same patterns of thought, relying on the same unexamined biases, and making similar mistakes without even realizing it. This is a primary reason why many people's decision-making abilities don't significantly improve over time, despite accumulating experience. Experience alone, without reflection and deliberate practice, does not guarantee wisdom. The top 1% of deciders, however, understand that their judgment is not a fixed commodity, but a skill that can be honed and calibrated through diligent self-assessment.
They treat their past decisions not as final verdicts on their intelligence, but as invaluable data points for learning and improvement. They systematically dissect their choices, both successes and failures, to understand what worked, what didn't, and why, so they can make even better decisions in the future. This chapter is about installing a decisional audit system into your life. It's about moving beyond simply making decisions to actively learning from them. You will discover practical methods for reviewing your choices, identifying patterns in their thinking, recognizing the influence of biases, and continuously calibrating your judgment to become a more effective and insightful decider over time. This is the path to transforming experience into genuine wisdom. Number 1, the power of retrospection, why looking back is key to moving forward better. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, wrote philosopher George Santayana. This is profoundly true for decision-making. Without a conscious effort to look back and analyze our past choices, we are highly likely to repeat mistakes. If we don't understand why a past decision failed, we're prone to making similar errors in judgment under similar circumstances. Misattribute success. If a decision worked out well, we might attribute it to skill when luck played a larger role, or vice versa. This leads to overconfidence or a failure to replicate genuine good process. Fail to identify and correct biases. Our cognitive biases operate largely unconsciously. Without deliberate retrospection, we remain unaware of how they are skewing our choices. Miss opportunities for process improvement. Even successful decisions often have aspects of the process that could have been more efficient or effective. Retrospection helps identify these. Stagnate in our decision-making ability. If we don't learn, we don't grow. Our judgment remains at the same level even as the world around us becomes more complex. Systematic retrospection, on the other hand, offers numerous benefits. Extracts valuable lessons. Every decision, regardless of outcome, contains lessons. Failures teach us what not to do. Successes, when analyzed correctly, can reveal effective strategies to replicate. Improves self-awareness. It helps us understand our own decision-making style, our strengths, our weaknesses, and the common traps we fall into. Calibrates judgment. By comparing our expectations at the time of the decision with the actual outcome, we can improve our ability to assess probabilities, risks, and potential impacts more accurately in the future. Reinforces good processes. When a decision succeeds due to a sound process, reviewing it helps to codify and reinforce those effective elements. Builds a mental database of experience. Deliberate reflection converts raw experience into organized knowledge that can be drawn upon for future decisions. The top 1% don't just move on after a decision. They schedule time to reflect, analyze, and learn. This commitment to retrospection is a core discipline that fuels their continuous improvement and sustained high performance in decision-making.
2. The Decision Journal, your personal laboratory for judgment calibration. One of the most powerful and practical tools for implementing a decisional audit is keeping a decision journal. This is a written record where you document key decisions before the outcome is known and then review them after the outcome is known. What to record before the outcome, at the time of decision. The date and the specific decision. Clearly state the choice being made. The situation or context. Briefly describe the circumstances leading to this decision. What problem are you trying to solve or opportunity are you trying to seize? The information you had. What were the key facts, data points, and sources you relied on? Your key assumptions. What underlying beliefs or assumptions are critical for this decision to be successful? The options considered. What alternatives did you evaluate? Why did you choose this particular option over others? Your expected outcomes. What do you specifically expect to happen as a result of this decision? Be as precise as possible. What are your best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios? Your level of confidence. On a scale, e.g., 1 to 10, how confident are you in this decision and your expected outcome? Your emotional state. Briefly note how you were feeling at the time of the decision, e.g., optimistic, anxious, rushed, calm. This helps identify emotional influences later. Criteria for success or failure. How will you know if this decision was a good one? What metrics will you use? What to record after the outcome is known. The date of review. The actual outcomes. What really happened? How did it compare to your expected outcome? Analysis. What went right? Were your assumptions correct? Was your information accurate and sufficient? Was your process sound? Did luck play a positive role? Analysis: what went wrong or could have been better? Were any keen assumptions incorrect? Was there critical information you missed or misinterpreted? Were there flaws in your analytical process or reasoning? Did any cognitive biases, e.g. overconfidence, confirmation bias, play a role? Be honest. Did your emotional state at the time unduly influence the choice? Did luck play a negative role? Key lessons learned. What are the 1 to 3 most important takeaways from this experience that you can apply to future decisions? Process improvements. Are there any changes you can make to your decision-making process based on this review? Keeping a decision journal might seem like extra work, but its benefits are profound. Combats hindsight bias. Hindsight bias is the tendency to see past events as having been more predictable than they actually were. By writing down your reasoning before the outcome, you have an objective record of what you actually thought, preventing your memory from playing tricks on you. Forces clarity of thought. The act of writing down your reasoning compels you to be more precise and structured in your thinking. Provides rich data for self-improvement. Over time, your journal becomes a personalized database of your decision-making patterns, successes, failures, and biases. Improves calibration. By consistently comparing your confidence levels with actual outcomes, you get better at assessing how much you really know or don't know in a given situation. Even journaling just 1 or 2 significant decisions per week can lead to remarkable improvements in your judgment over a year. It transforms decision-making from a haphazard activity into a deliberate practice of skill development.
3. Conducting after-action reviews, AARs, and post-mortems. While a decision journal is excellent for individual reflection, for team-based or organizational decisions, more structured review processes like after-action reviews, AARs, or post-mortems are invaluable. After-action review, AAR. Originally developed by the U.S. Army, an AAR is a professional discussion of an event focused on performance standards that enables participants to discover for themselves what happened, why it happened, and how to sustain strengths and improve on weaknesses. It's typically conducted soon after an event or project phase. Key questions in an AAR include: what was supposed to happen? What was the plan or objective? What actually happened? The objective facts without blame. What went well and why? Identify successes and their root causes to replicate them. What could have been done differently and why? Identify shortfalls and their root causes to correct them. What will we do differently next time? Develop actionable recommendations for improvement. An AAR should be a blameless environment focused on learning and improvement, not on finger-pointing. Postmortem or project retrospective, similar to an AAR, is typically conducted at the end of a project or significant initiative, whether it was a success or a failure. It aims to identify what worked, what didn't, and what lessons can be applied to future endeavors. Common areas of focus include project goals and objectives. Were they clear? Were they met? Planning and estimation. Were they accurate? Processes and methodologies used. Were they effective? Teamwork and communication. Risk management. Were risks identified and managed well? Tools and resources, stakeholder management. The outputs of these reviews should be documented, and crucially, actionable recommendations should be tracked and implemented. Without follow-through, the review becomes a mere academic exercise. These structured reviews, whether individual, journaling, or group-based AARs or postmortems, are not about dwelling on the past. They're about strategically leveraging the past to create a better future by continuously refining the engine of decision-making. 4. Identifying and counteracting your personal cognitive biases. As discussed earlier, we are all susceptible to cognitive biases. A critical part of the decisional audit process is becoming more aware of the specific biases that tend to influence your thinking most often and developing strategies to counteract them. During your decision reviews, ask yourself, was I overly influenced by the first piece of information I received, anchoring bias? Did I only seek out or pay attention to information that confirmed my initial hunch, confirmation bias? Was I too confident in my own judgment or predictions, overconfidence bias? Or did I continue investing in this because of past efforts, even when it wasn't rational? Sunk cost fallacy. Was I swayed by a vivid story or recent event rather than broader data, availability heuristic? Or did I assume that because something worked in one context, it would work in this different one, false analogy? Or did I go along with the group even if I had private doubts, groupthink, or bandwagon effect? Once you start to see patterns in the biases that affect you, make a conscious effort to look for them before making important decisions. Just being aware is the first step. Implement specific counter strategies. For example, if you know you're prone to confirmation bias, make it a rule to actively seek out 3 pieces of disconfirming evidence before deciding. If you tend towards overconfidence, systematically seek out reasons why your plan might fail, a pre-mortem thought process. Ask trusted colleagues or mentors to point out potential biases in your reasoning. An outside perspective can be invaluable. This is not about achieving perfect rationality, that's an illusion. It's about reducing the degree of error introduced by your inherent cognitive shortcuts, thereby improving the overall quality and reliability of your judgment. The commitment to regularly auditing your decisions is what separates amateurs from professionals in the art of choice. It's the disciplined practice that turns experience into expertise and good intentions into consistently better outcomes. Make the decisional audit a non-negotiable part of your operational rhythm, and you will unlock a powerful, continuous engine for self-improvement that will keep you learning, refining, and staying ahead for life.
Chapter 10. The Decisive Leader. Making choices that inspire, empower, and drive collective success. Throughout this audiobook, we've explored the intricate art and science of individual decision-making. But for many, especially those in leadership positions or aspiring to them, the ultimate test lies not just in making sound personal choices, but in making decisions that inspire action, empower others, and drive collective success for a team, an organization, or a community. A leader's decisions have a ripple effect far beyond their own immediate sphere. They set the direction, allocate resources, shape culture, and ultimately determine the fate of the collective endeavor. A poor decision at the leadership level can demotivate teams, squander potential, and lead to widespread failure, no matter how talented the individuals within the group. Conversely, a series of wise, well-communicated, and effectively implemented leadership decisions can unlock extraordinary collective achievement. The top 1% of leaders are not just brilliant individual deciders, they are masterful orchestrators of the decision-making process within their sphere of influence. They understand that their role is often less about having all the answers themselves and more about creating the conditions for the best possible decisions to emerge from and be embraced by the group. This chapter focuses on the unique challenges and responsibilities of decisional leadership. You will learn how to make choices that galvanize and motivate your team rather than confuse or disempower them. The critical importance of clarity, communication, and buy-in when leading others through decision-making. How to balance decisiveness with inclusivity. How to foster a culture where good decision-making permeates all levels of an organization. This is about moving from being a solo strategist to a conductor of a high-performing decision-making orchestra. Mastering these principles will not only elevate your own leadership effectiveness, but will also create a powerful, resilient, and successful collective. 1. The leader's primary role, creating decisional clarity and direction. One of the most fundamental responsibilities of a leader is to provide clarity. In the context of decision-making, this means articulating a clear vision and strategic goals. As discussed in Chapter 3, the overarching vision and strategic objectives serve as the North Star for all decision-making. The leader must consistently communicate and reinforce this vision so that every member of the team understands the why behind their efforts and can align their own choices accordingly. Without this clarity, decisions at lower levels can become fragmented and misaligned. Defining priorities and boundaries. Leaders must make tough choices about what the team or organization will focus on and, just as importantly, what it will not focus on. This involves setting clear priorities, defining the scope of work, and establishing boundaries that prevent resources from being diluted across too many initiatives.
This provides a framework within which others can make effective operational decisions. Ensuring role clarity and decision rights. Who is responsible for making what types of decisions? What is the process for escalating decisions that require higher-level input? Ambiguity around decision rights leads to confusion, delays, and frustration. Leaders must ensure that roles and responsibilities for decision-making are clearly defined and understood. Communicating decisions effectively. Once a significant decision is made at the leadership level, it must be communicated clearly, concisely, and with transparency to all relevant stakeholders. This includes explaining the rationale behind the decision, the expected outcomes, and how it aligns with the overall strategy. Poor communication of decisions can lead to misunderstandings, resistance, and flawed execution. Providing a framework for evaluating options. Leaders can equip their teams with mental models, analytical tools, and criteria for evaluating options, empowering them to make better decisions within their own areas of responsibility. When a leader successfully creates this environment of clarity, team members are empowered to make more autonomous, aligned, and effective decisions within their own areas. They are not constantly second-guessing or waiting for direction on every minor issue. This frees up the leader to focus on higher-level strategic choices. Conversely, a lack of clarity from leadership breeds confusion, inefficiency, and a culture of dependency. 2. Balancing decisiveness with inclusivity, the art of leading out loud. Effective leadership decision-making often involves a delicate balance between decisiveness, the ability to make a timely choice and stick to it, especially under pressure, and inclusivity, the practice of involving relevant stakeholders and considering diverse perspectives. The need for decisiveness. Teams look to leaders to make tough calls, especially when faced with ambiguity, tight deadlines, or conflicting opinions. Indecisive leadership can cripple an organization, leading to stagnation and missed opportunities. A leader must have the courage to make a decision, even with imperfect information, and take responsibility for the outcome. The value of inclusivity. As discussed in Chapter 7, involving others in the decision-making process, where appropriate, leads to better quality decisions, increased buy-in, and smoother execution. Ignoring valuable input or making decisions in an opaque, autocratic manner can demotivate teams and foster resentment. How do effective leaders navigate this balance? Leading out loud, sharing your thought process. Instead of just announcing a final decision, leaders can share their thinking as they work through a problem. This might involve saying, "Here's the challenge as I see it. Here are the options I'm considering. Here are the pros and cons I'm weighing. What are your thoughts? What am I missing?" This makes the process more transparent and allows for input without abdicating the leader's ultimate responsibility. Knowing when to be inclusive and when to be directive. Not all decisions require the same level of consultation. For highly strategic, complex decisions with broad impact, a more inclusive approach is generally better. For urgent, tactical decisions where the leader has clear expertise, or in a crisis situation, a more directive approach may be necessary. The key is to be intentional about the chosen approach based on the nature of the decision. Clearly defining the input versus decision role. When seeking input, leaders should be clear about whether they are asking for recommendations, opinions to be considered, or a consensus vote. If the leader retains the final decision-making authority, which is often the case, this should be transparent. People are more willing to offer input if they understand how it will be used. Seeking consent versus consensus. Aiming for 100% consensus on every major decision can be paralyzing. Sometimes the goal should be consent, meaning that even if it's not everyone's first choice, they can understand the rationale, support the decision, and commit to its execution. Explaining the why after a directive decision. If a leader has to make a quick directive decision, it's still crucial to follow up afterward and explain the reasoning to the team. This builds understanding and trust for future situations. The most effective leaders are not always the ones who make every decision themselves, nor are they the ones who abdicate all decision-making to others. They are skilled facilitators who know how to tap into the collective intelligence of their team while retaining the courage and clarity to make the final call when necessary. ensuring that the process builds both good decisions and strong commitment. 3. Empowering others, fostering a culture of distributed decision-making. A truly effective leader doesn't want to be the bottleneck for every decision. Their goal should be to build a team and a culture where good decision-making happens at all levels, appropriate to each individual's role and expertise. This is about empowerment and distributed decision-making. Empowering others to make decisions offers several advantages. Increased speed and agility. Decisions can be made more quickly by those closest to the information and the point of action without having to go up multiple layers of hierarchy. Better quality decisions, often. Frontline individuals often have the most current and practical understanding of specific operational issues and customer needs, leading to more informed choices in those areas. Development of future leaders. Giving people the opportunity to make decisions and learn from the outcomes is one of the best ways to develop their skills and prepare them for greater responsibility. Increased engagement and ownership. When people feel trusted and empowered to make decisions that affect their work, their sense of ownership, engagement, and motivation typically increases. Frees up leadership capacity. When leaders are not bogged down in micro decisions, they have more time and mental energy to focus on high-level strategy and vision. To foster a culture of empowered decision-making, leaders should provide clear guardrails and principles. While empowering autonomy, leaders must also provide clear strategic direction, core values, and operational principles that guide the decisions made by others. This ensures alignment without micromanagement. Delegate authority, not just tasks. True empowerment involves giving individuals the authority to make certain decisions within their defined scope, not just assigning them tasks to execute someone else's decision. Tolerate and learn from mistakes. If people are afraid of making mistakes, they will be reluctant to take on decision-making responsibility. Leaders must create an environment where well-intentioned mistakes, within reasonable bounds, are treated as learning opportunities. This doesn't mean tolerating incompetence or repeated errors, but it does mean allowing for a degree of experimentation and learning. Provide coaching and mentorship. Help team members develop their decision-making skills by asking good questions, providing frameworks, and sharing your own experiences rather than just giving them the answers. Ensure access to information. For people to make good decisions, they need access to relevant information. Leaders should work to break down information silos. Recognize and reward good decision-making at all levels. Acknowledge and appreciate when individuals or teams make sound, well-reasoned choices, even if they are not major strategic breakthroughs. The ultimate goal is to create an organization where everyone feels empowered and equipped to be a good decider in their sphere of influence, all working in concert toward shared strategic objectives. This is far more powerful and scalable than relying on a single heroic leader to make all the important calls. 4. The leader as decisional role model, walking the talk. People, especially within an organization, pay far more attention to what leaders do than what they say. Therefore, leaders have a profound responsibility to role model the decision-making behaviors they wish to see in others. This means demonstrating analytical rigor. When leaders openly show that they base their own important decisions on careful analysis, data, and consideration of alternatives, rather than just gut feel or personal preference, it sets a standard for the rest of the organization. Being open to diverse perspectives and challenges. If leaders invite and genuinely consider dissenting views for their own decisions, others will feel safer doing the same. Admitting mistakes and learning publicly. When a leader acknowledges a poor decision, takes responsibility, and shares the lessons learned, it creates a culture where it's okay for others to do the same, fostering resilience and continuous improvement. Communicating transparently. Leaders who are open about their decision-making process, the why behind their choices, build trust and encourage similar transparency from others. Maintaining emotional regulation under pressure. How a leader behaves and makes decisions during a crisis or when facing adversity sends a powerful signal. Remaining calm, rational, and principled sets a strong example. Championing ethical decision-making. Leaders must consistently make choices that align with stated values and ethical principles. Any hypocrisy here will severely undermine trust and the desired decision-making culture. The decision-making culture of an organization is largely a reflection of its leadership. If leaders are impulsive, opaque, or resistant to feedback in their own decision-making, it's highly unlikely that a culture of thoughtful, collaborative, and empowered decision-making will flourish beneath them. Decisive leadership is not about having all the answers or making every call in isolation. It's about creating clarity, fostering inclusivity where appropriate, empowering others, and consistently modeling the principles of sound judgment. It's about building an entire system, a team, an organization that is collectively intelligent and capable of making superior choices that drive sustained success. This is the hallmark of the top 1% of leaders who don't just achieve personal success, but who elevate everyone around them.
Chapter 11: The Decisive Edge in a Rapidly Changing World: Agility and Adaptability. The one constant in our modern world is change. Technological advancements, shifting market dynamics, geopolitical instability, evolving societal norms, the pace and complexity of change are unprecedented. In such an environment, the ability to make sound decisions is paramount, but equally critical is the ability to make them quickly and adopt them readily. Decisions that take too long to make can become obsolete before they are even implemented. Strategies that are too rigid can shatter in the face of unforeseen disruptions. The top 1% of deciders in this volatile landscape are not just thoughtful and analytical, they are also agile and adaptable. They have cultivated the capacity to process information and make choices with speed without sacrificing quality, remain flexible in their thinking and planning, pivot quickly when circumstances change or new information emerges, learn and iterate rapidly. This chapter explores how to build decisional agility and adaptability, the crucial attributes that allow you to thrive, not just survive, in a world of constant flux. It's about moving beyond static decision-making models to embrace a more dynamic, responsive, and iterative approach. This is the edge that allows you to outmaneuver competitors, seize fleeting opportunities, and navigate uncertainty with confidence and skill. 1. The need for speed without sacrificing rigor in modern decision-making. In many traditional decision-making paradigms, thoroughness and exhaustive analysis were prized above all else. While rigor remains essential, the timelines available for many critical decisions have shrunk dramatically. Markets move faster, competitors iterate more quickly, and windows of opportunity can open and close with breathtaking speed. The challenge then is to increase the velocity of decision-making without a corresponding decrease in its quality. This is not about being reckless or making uninformed choices. It's about streamlining processes, identifying and eliminating unnecessary bureaucracy, redundant steps, or approval layers in your decision-making process. Prioritizing ruthlessly, focusing decisional energy on the most critical choices, and empowering others or using simpler heuristics for less critical ones. Not every decision warrants a 6-month study. Leveraging technology, using data analytics tools, AI-powered insights, and collaboration platforms to gather and process information more efficiently. Developing good enough decision thresholds. For some decisions, especially reversible ones, striving for a perfect 100% solution can lead to fatal delays. Understanding when an 80% solution implemented quickly is better than a 95% solution implemented too late is key. This requires good judgment about the cost of delay. Pre-mortems and if-then planning, thinking through potential scenarios and having pre-considered responses or contingency plans can allow for much faster action when one of those scenarios materializes. Empowering frontline decision-making, pushing decision authority down to those closest to the information and the customer with clear guardrails dramatically increases responsiveness. Cultivating a bias for action with rapid feedback,
In some contexts, making a small, reversible decision quickly to test an assumption and gather real-world data is faster and more effective than prolonged theoretical analysis. This is the heart of agile methodologies. However, the pursuit of speed must not come at the cost of fundamental due diligence. The goal is to be efficiently thorough. Master deciders find ways to be both fast and smart by focusing their analytical efforts, using effective frameworks, and building systems that support rapid yet informed choices. They distinguish between rushed decisions, often poor, and swift decisions, often strategically advantageous. 2. Embracing imperfection and iteration. The agile decision maker. The traditional waterfall approach to projects and decisions involved extensive upfront planning, followed by rigid execution of that plan, with little room for change. In a stable, predictable world, this might have worked. In today's dynamic environment, it often leads to projects that are delivered late, over budget, and no longer meet the needs of the now changed market or stakeholders. The agile mindset, born in software development, but now applied across many domains, offers a powerful alternative for decision-making in uncertain conditions. Key principles of agile decision-making include embracing uncertainty, acknowledging that you don't have all the answers up front and that the plan will likely need to change. Iterative progress, making decisions and implementing them in small, manageable increments or cycles, sprints. Rapid feedback loops, building in mechanisms to get frequent feedback from users, the market, or data at the end of each iteration. Learning and adaptation, using that feedback to learn, adjust the plan, and refine the next iteration. The decision evolves based on real-world learning. Cross-functional collaboration, bringing together diverse skills and perspectives to work concurrently on problems. Valuing working solutions over comprehensive documentation initially, prioritizing getting a functional, even if imperfect version out quickly to learn from rather than spending excessive time on perfect upfront specifications. Responding to change over following a plan. While planning is still important, the ability to adapt to changing requirements or new information is valued more highly than rigidly sticking to an outdated plan. This iterative approach allows deciders to reduce risk. By making smaller bets and getting feedback early, you avoid investing heavily in a flawed idea before discovering its problems. Increase speed to market or value. You can deliver value to stakeholders or customers much sooner, even if it's not the final perfect version. Improve alignment with changing needs. By constantly gathering feedback, you ensure that your decisions and solutions remain relevant as circumstances evolve. Foster innovation. The iterative process encourages experimentation and learning, which are key drivers of innovation. Adopting an agile mindset for decision-making means moving away from the idea that a decision is a one-time, perfect pronouncement. Instead, many important decisions become a series of evolving choices informed by continuous learning and adaptation. This requires a tolerance for ambiguity and a comfort with not knowing everything at the outset.
Building organizational and personal adaptability. Adaptability is the capacity to adjust to new conditions. It's a crucial characteristic for both individuals and organizations striving to make effective decisions in a changing world. Adaptability isn't just about reacting to change, it's about proactively building the capacity to change. Organizational adaptability. Flexible structures. Moving away from rigid hierarchies towards more fluid, team-based structures that can form and reform around specific challenges or opportunities. Learning culture. Fostering an environment where continuous learning, experimentation, and sharing of knowledge are valued and rewarded. Resource fluidity. The ability to reallocate resources, budget, talent, quickly to support new priorities or adapt to changing circumstances. Scenario planning. Regularly exploring different potential future scenarios and developing contingency plans for them. This builds mental muscle for dealing with unexpected events. Investing in reskilling and upskilling. Ensuring that the workforce has the skills needed to adapt to new technologies and changing job requirements. Decentralized information flow.
breaking down silos so that relevant information can flow quickly to those who need it to make adaptive decisions. Personal adaptability, maintaining a growth mindset, believing that your skills and abilities can be developed, making you more open to learning new things and adapting to new roles. Cultivating curiosity, a natural curiosity about new trends, technologies, and ideas fuels the desire to learn and adapt. Developing emotional resilience, the ability to cope with uncertainty, setbacks, and the stress of change without becoming overwhelmed. Building a diverse skill set. Having a broader range of skills makes you more versatile and better able to pivot when needed. Networking and building relationships. A strong network can provide support, information, and opportunities during times of transition. Practicing unlearning. Sometimes the biggest barrier to adaptation is clinging to old ways of thinking or outdated skills. Being willing to unlearn what is no longer relevant is crucial. Embracing discomfort. Stepping outside your comfort zone and trying new things, even if it feels awkward initially, builds your capacity for adaptation. The top 1% of deciders recognize that in a world of constant flux, their ability to adapt their thinking, their strategies, and their actions is just as important as the quality of their initial analysis. They don't just make decisions for a changing world, they build the capacity to change with it into their very DNA. 4. The ODA loop, a framework for rapid, adaptive decision-making in dynamic environments. The ODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, is a concept developed by military strategist and U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd. It provides a powerful framework for thinking about how to make effective decisions and gain an advantage in fast-moving, competitive, and uncertain environments. Observe. Gather information from the environment. What is happening? What are the facts? What are the signals? This involves using all your senses and information sources. Orient. This is the most critical and complex part of the loop. It involves analyzing the observed information, understanding its meaning and significance in context, and forming a mental model of the situation. Your orientation is shaped by your genetic heritage, cultural traditions, past experiences, new information, and your analytical and synthesis capabilities. A superior orientation allows you to better understand the unfolding reality. Decide. Based on your current orientation, your understanding of the situation, select a course of action from available alternatives. This is where hypotheses are formed about what will best achieve your objectives. Act. Implement the chosen course of action. Execute the decision. The key to the ODA loop is not just going through these phases, but doing so iteratively and faster than your opponent or the changing situation. By cycling through the ODA loop more quickly and effectively, you can seize the initiative, adapt to changing circumstances more rapidly, generate confusion and uncertainty for adversaries, if in a competitive context, by acting in ways they don't expect or can't keep up with, and continuously refine your understanding and your actions based on real-world feedback from your previous phase, which becomes new observations. The ODA loop emphasizes that decision-making is not a linear, one-shot event, but a continuous, dynamic process of interacting and learning from the environment. It highlights the importance of rapid information gathering, observation, accurate and insightful sense-making, orientation, swift but informed choice, decision, and decisive implementation, action, and crucially, the feedback from action back into observation to start the next cycle. Leaders and individuals who can effectively internalize and apply the ODA loop thinking are better equipped to make high-quality decisions under pressure, adapt to rapidly evolving situations, and maintain a decisive edge in any competitive or uncertain domain. It's a mental model for thriving in a world that refuses to stand still. The future belongs to those who make one perfect decision and then rest on their laurels, but to those who can continuously make good decisions, learn from them, and adapt with speed and intelligence. Cultivating decisional agility and adaptability is no longer a luxury, it's a fundamental requirement for sustained success in the 21st century.
Chapter 12. The Ethical Compass.
integrity and responsibility in high-stakes decision-making. Throughout our exploration of decision-making, we have focused heavily on effectiveness, strategy, analysis, and achieving desired outcomes. However, there is a dimension that transcends mere efficacy, a compass that should guide even the most pragmatic choices, especially when the stakes are high and the impact on others is significant: ethics and integrity. A decision can be strategically brilliant, analytically sound, and flawlessly executed, yet if it is ethically bankrupt or made without a sense of profound responsibility, it can lead to devastating consequences for individuals, organizations, society, and ultimately for the decider's own legacy and conscience. History is replete with examples of successful decisions that, in retrospect, caused immense harm due to a lack of ethical consideration. The top 1% of truly admirable and enduring deciders understand that integrity is not a constraint on good decision-making, but its very foundation. They recognize that choices made without a strong ethical compass may yield short-term gains, but will inevitably lead to long-term costs, weathering reputation, trust, legal repercussions, or the erosion of moral capital. This chapter delves into the critical role of ethics and responsibility in high-stakes decision-making. It's about understanding why ethical considerations are integral to, not separate from, effective decision-making, developing a framework for navigating ethical dilemmas, cultivating the courage to make principled choices even when they are difficult or unpopular, recognizing the profound responsibility that comes with the power to decide, especially when those decisions impact others. This is not about a rigid set of rules, but about cultivating an inner ethical compass that ensures your choices are not only smart and successful, but also right and responsible. In a world increasingly demanding transparency and accountability, decisions guided by integrity are not just a moral imperative, but a strategic advantage. 1. Why ethics is not a luxury, but a cornerstone of sustainable success. Some may view ethics and decision-making as a nice-to-have or a constraint that gets in the way of hard-nosed business or practical realities. This is a dangerously short-sighted perspective. In the long run, ethical decision-making is inextricably linked to sustainable success and resilience. Trust and reputation. Trust is the bedrock of all healthy relationships with customers, employees, investors, partners, and the community. Decisions perceived as unethical erode trust, often irreparably, and damage reputation. A strong reputation built on integrity is an invaluable asset that can take years to build but can be destroyed by a single unethical choice. Employee morale and engagement. People want to work for organizations and leaders they believe are ethical. A culture where unethical decisions are tolerated or encouraged leads to cynicism, disengagement, and often the loss of top talent. Conversely, a commitment to ethical conduct fosters pride, loyalty, and higher morale. Customer loyalty. Customers are increasingly making purchasing decisions not just on price and quality, but also on the perceived ethical behavior of companies. Unethical practices can lead to boycotts and a loss of market share. Legal and regulatory compliance. Many ethical breaches are also legal or regulatory violations, leading to fines, lawsuits, and even criminal charges. A strong ethical framework helps ensure compliance and avoid these costly consequences. Risk mitigation. Unethical behavior often creates significant hidden risks, from internal fraud to public scandals. Ethical decision-making is a powerful form of long-term risk management. Attracting investment and partnerships. Investors and potential partners are increasingly scrutinizing the ethical conduct and governance of organizations. A strong ethical track record can be a significant advantage in securing capital and forging alliances. Long-term value creation. While unethical shortcuts might offer fleeting gains, sustainable value is built on a foundation of fair dealing, responsible practices, and a commitment to stakeholders' well-being. The notion that good ethics is good business is not just a platitude, it's a pragmatic reality. The most successful and enduring individuals and organizations understand that prioritizing ethical considerations is not about sacrificing success, but about ensuring that success is achieved in a way that is sustainable, reputable, and contributes positively to the world.
2. Frameworks for navigating ethical dilemmas in decision-making. Ethical dilemmas arise when there are conflicting moral considerations, where different values are in tension, or where any available option seems to have potential negative ethical consequences. There's rarely a single right answer that satisfies everyone, but having a structured approach can help navigate these complexities more thoughtfully. Here are some common ethical frameworks and guiding questions. Utilitarianism, the greatest good. This approach focuses on the consequences of a decision. The most ethical choice is the one that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people, or the least harm. Guiding questions. Who will be affected by this decision? What are the potential benefits and harms for each stakeholder group? Which option maximizes overall well-being? Deontology, rights and duties. This approach emphasizes moral duties, rules, and rights. An action is considered ethical if it adheres to these duties and respects the rights of individuals, regardless of the outcome. Guiding questions. What are my duties and obligations in this situation? Does this decision respect the fundamental rights of all involved, e.g., right to safety, privacy, fair treatment? Is there a universal principle that should guide this action, e.g., treat others as you would want to be treated? Virtue ethics, character and integrity. This approach focuses on the character of the decision-maker. The ethical choice is the one that a virtuous person, someone with qualities like honesty, fairness, compassion, courage, would make in that situation. It's about being a certain kind of person. Guiding questions. What kind of person do I want to be? What would someone I admire for their integrity do in this situation? Does this decision align with the virtues I aspire to embody? The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This simple but powerful principle encourages empathy and considering the impact of your decisions from others' perspectives. The publicity test, or the front page test. How would you feel if your decision and the reasons behind it were to be reported on the front page of a major newspaper or go viral on social media? If you would feel ashamed or uncomfortable, it might be an indicator of an ethically questionable choice. The reversibility test. How would you feel if you were on the receiving end of this decision? The professional ethics test. Does this decision align with the established ethical codes or standards of your profession or industry? The sleep test. Can you make this decision and still sleep soundly at night, knowing you acted with integrity? No single framework is perfect for every situation. Often, the most robust ethical decision-making involves considering a dilemma through multiple lenses. The process of engaging with these questions, even if the answer isn't immediately obvious, elevates the quality of ethical reasoning. It's also crucial to gather all relevant facts, identify all stakeholders and how they will be affected, consider alternative courses of action, seek counsel from trusted advisors or ethics experts if the dilemma is particularly complex. Be prepared to justify your decision based on ethical principles. Ethical decision-making is a skill that improves with practice and conscious reflection. It's not always easy, but it is always important. 3. The courage of principled conviction, making the right choice, not just the easy one. Knowing what is ethically right is one thing. Having the courage to do it, especially when it's difficult, unpopular, or comes at a personal or professional cost, is another entirely. Ethical leadership and decision-making often require immense moral courage. Consider situations where the easiest or most profitable option is ethically questionable. Speaking out against an unethical practice could jeopardize your job or relationships. Admitting a mistake would be embarrassing or have negative consequences, but covering it up would be dishonest. Standing up for a minority viewpoint or an unpopular principle requires going against the grain. In these moments,
It's tempting to rationalize, to compromise principles, or to choose the path of least resistance. This is where the true test of ethical character lies. Cultivating the courage of principled conviction involves clarity on your core values. When your values are deeply ingrained and non-negotiable, they provide a stronger anchor against pressures to compromise. Anticipating ethical challenges. Thinking ahead about potential ethical dilemmas you might face can help you prepare mentally and consider how you would respond. Building a support network of principled individuals. Surrounding yourself with people who share your commitment to integrity can provide encouragement and strength when facing tough ethical choices. Focusing on long-term integrity over short-term gain. Remind yourself that your reputation and self-respect are built over a lifetime and are worth more than any fleeting advantage gained through unethical means. Learning from moral exemplars. Study the lives of individuals who have demonstrated great moral courage. Their stories can be inspiring and provide a roadmap. Starting small. Moral courage, like any muscle, can be strengthened with practice. Standing up for small principles can build the capacity to stand up for larger ones. Accepting potential negative consequences. Sometimes doing the right thing comes with a cost. Being mentally prepared for this possibility can make it easier to make the principled choice. The decisions you make when your ethics are on the line are the ones that will most define your character and your legacy. The top 1% of admirable deciders understand that true leadership is not just about achieving results, but about achieving them in a way that upholds the highest standards of integrity. 4. The weight of responsibility, acknowledging the impact of your decisions on others. With the power to make significant decisions comes profound responsibility. This is especially true for leaders, whose choices can affect the livelihoods, well-being, and futures of many people: employees, customers, shareholders, community members, and even society at large. A hallmark of a responsible decider is a keen awareness and thoughtful consideration of this impact. This involves empathy and stakeholder consideration, actively trying to understand how a decision will affect different stakeholder groups, not just the ones who are most powerful or vocal. Thinking beyond an us versus them mentality, recognizing that in an interconnected world, decisions that harm one group can often have unintended negative consequences for others, including oneself in the long run. Considering second and third order societal and environmental impacts. For major decisions, looking beyond immediate economic effects to consider broader impacts on the community, the environment, and future generations. Accountability. Being willing to take ownership of the outcomes of your decisions, both good and bad, and to answer for their consequences. This includes transparency and a willingness to make amends if a decision causes unintended harm. Stewardship. For leaders, viewing their role not just as one of power, but as one of stewardship, a responsibility to protect and enhance the resources entrusted to them for the benefit of all stakeholders. A commitment to do no harm or to minimize harm. While not always possible to avoid all negative impacts, a responsible decider strives to minimize harm and to ensure that any necessary trade-offs are made thoughtfully and ethically. The decisions you make that leave a truly positive and lasting legacy are those that wield their power to choose with a deep sense of humility, empathy, and responsibility for the well-being of others. They understand that their decisions are not made in a vacuum, but have real-world consequences that shape lives and communities. In the final analysis, the most powerful and enduring decisions are those that are not only strategically sound and effectively executed, but are also grounded in a strong ethical compass and a profound sense of responsibility for the well-being of others. This is the path to becoming not just a successful decider, but a respected and admirable one, a leader whose choices build a better future for all.
Chapter 13. The Decisive Future. Continuous Learning and the Lifelong Pursuit of Judgment. We've journeyed through the core principles that separate the top 1% of deciders from the rest. We've explored the mindsets, the analytical tools, the ethical considerations, and the execution strategies that underpin consistently superior choices. But as we approach the culmination of this audiobook, there's one final, overarching truth that must be embraced. The pursuit of better judgment is a lifelong endeavor. The world will not stand still. New challenges will emerge, information will proliferate, complexities will deepen, and the skills required for effective decision-making will continue to evolve. The moment you believe you have mastered decision-making, the moment you stop actively seeking to learn and refine your judgment, is the moment you begin to cede your decisive edge. The truly elite deciders, the ones who sustain their success and influence across decades, are perpetual students of choice. They remain humble about the limits of their own knowledge, endlessly curious about new perspectives and methodologies, and ruthlessly committed to continuous self-improvement in the art and science of decision-making. This final chapter is not just a summary, it's a call to action. It's about instilling the mindset of lifelong learning and relentless refinement as the capstone of your journey to becoming a master decider. It's about ensuring that the principles you've learned here are not just a temporary upgrade, but the foundation for a continuous upward spiral of improving judgment and increasingly impactful choices for the rest of your life. 1. The dynamic nature of decision-making, why yesterday's solutions rarely fit tomorrow's problems. The strategies and mental models that led to successful decisions in the past are not guaranteed to work in the future. Several factors contribute to this dynamic reality. Evolving environments. Markets shift, technologies disrupt, societal values change, and geopolitical landscapes transform. A decision framework optimized for a stable environment may be woefully inadequate in a volatile one. Information velocity and volume. The sheer amount of data available is exploding, and the speed at which it changes requires new skills in filtering, synthesis, and rapid sense-making. Increasing interconnectedness. Decisions in one area increasingly have ripple effects across disparate domains, demanding a more systemic and holistic approach to analysis. Changing personal circumstances. Your own goals, values, resources, and life stage will evolve, requiring you to adapt your decision-making criteria and priorities. The Red Queen effect. In competitive environments, business, careers, etc., everyone is trying to improve. To simply maintain your position, you must continually get better. To get ahead, you must improve faster than others. This applies directly to decision-making capabilities. Those who fail to recognize this dynamic nature and cling to outdated decision-making habits will inevitably find their judgment becoming less effective over time. They risk becoming the metaphorical dinosaurs, perfectly adapted to a previous era, but unable to survive in a new one. The top 1% of deciders, however, embrace this dynamism. They see it not as a threat, but as an ongoing invitation to learn, adapt, and refine their craft. They are constantly asking, what new trends or information could impact my current decision-making models? Are there new tools or frameworks that could enhance my analytical capabilities? How are the best deciders in other fields approaching challenges similar to mine? What assumptions that served me well in the past might now be limiting my thinking? This mindset of proactive adaptation is crucial for sustained decisional excellence. 2. Committing to continuous learning in the art and science of choice. Given the dynamic nature of decision-making, a commitment to continuous learning is non-negotiable for anyone aspiring to remain in the top echelon of deciders. This involves reading widely. Explore books and articles on decision science, cognitive psychology, behavioral economics, strategy, leadership, ethics, and specific domain knowledge relevant to your field. Learn from both classic texts and contemporary research. Seeking out new mental models. Actively look for and learn new analytical frameworks and mental models, like those discussed in Chapter 2 and beyond. The more models you have in your intellectual toolkit, the more versatile and insightful your thinking will be. Learning from others, mentors, peers, even contrarians. Mentors. Seek guidance from individuals whose judgment you respect and who have a track record of making wise decisions. Peers. Engage in discussions with colleagues about decision-making challenges and share best practices. Contrarians or devil's advocates. Pay attention to those who challenge your thinking. They often provide the most valuable, though sometimes uncomfortable,
learning opportunities. Studying case histories, successes and failures. Analyze how significant decisions were made in various contexts, in business, history, politics, etc. What can you learn from the processes, outcomes, and contributing factors? Formal education and training, where appropriate. Consider courses, workshops, or certifications that can deepen your understanding of specific aspects of decision-making, e.g. data analysis, risk management, negotiation, strategic thinking. Staying abreast of technological advancements. Understand how new technologies, e.g. AI, machine learning, big data analysis, are impacting information availability and decision support systems, and how you can leverage them. Practicing deliberate reflection, the decisional audit, as emphasized in Chapter 9, regularly reviewing your own decisions is perhaps the most potent form of personalized learning. This commitment to learning shouldn't feel like a burden, but like an exciting, ongoing exploration. The world is a vast laboratory of decision-making, and every day offers new opportunities to observe, learn, and refine your own approach.
3. The humility of a master, recognizing the limits of knowledge and the ever-present risk of bias. One of the paradoxes of true mastery in any field, including decision-making, is that it is often accompanied by a profound sense of humility. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. The deeper your understanding of cognitive biases, the more aware you become of your own susceptibility to them. Master deciders are not arrogant about their abilities. They understand that perfect information is an illusion. There will always be uncertainty. Their own judgment is fallible. They are aware of their cognitive limitations and potential biases. The future is inherently unpredictable. No amount of analysis can guarantee a perfect outcome. Luck and unforeseen events will always play a role. This humility is not a sign of weakness, but of profound strength and wisdom. It leads to greater openness to new information and different perspectives, a willingness to question one's own assumptions, more rigorous stress testing of plans and decisions, a greater appreciation for risk management and contingency planning, a quicker ability to admit mistakes and adapt when things go wrong. Conversely, overconfidence and a lack of intellectual humility are often precursors to disastrous decisions. When deciders believe they are infallible or know everything, they stop listening, stop learning, and become blind to emerging risks. The lifelong pursuit of better judgment requires a continuous dialogue with your own limitations, a persistent questioning of your own certainty, and an unwavering commitment to learning from every experience. 4. Your decisive legacy, choices that echo through time. As you apply the principles in this audiobook and embark on your lifelong journey of refining your decision-making prowess, consider the legacy your choices will create. Every decision, big or small, contributes to the person you are becoming and the impact you have on the world. Will your decisions be remembered for their wisdom, foresight, and positive impact? Will you be known as someone who made principled choices even when it was difficult? Will you have empowered others and built systems that foster good decision-making beyond your own tenure? Will your choices have contributed to sustainable success, ethical conduct, and the well-being of those you influenced? The power to decide is one of the most profound human capabilities. It is the power to shape not only your own destiny, but also, to varying degrees, the destinies of others. Wielding that power with skill, integrity, and a commitment to continuous learning is the hallmark of a truly exceptional individual. The journey to becoming a master decider is not a destination, but a direction. It's a continuous process of learning, adapting, reflecting, and striving to make each choice better than the last. The principles and frameworks in this audiobook are your map and compass. The rest of the journey, the relentless application, the courageous choices, the humble learning, is up to you. The future belongs to those who decide wisely, act decisively, and learn continuously. Make the decision today to become one of them. Your most impactful choices are still ahead. Go forth and decide.